Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Pursuant to AB 2448, I forget the code section, the newly revised Brown Act allows for elected officials to participate remotely if they are out of town on behalf of another public agency, much like a few weeks ago when Councilmember Thompson was in Washington, D.C. on behalf of a school district. Mayor Pittman is out of town on behalf of another public agency, and I believe, is it BCAG?
Housing Authority.
It's the Butte County Housing Authority. And so he is going to participate remotely pursuant to the newly revised Brown Act. I make that announcement so that you are aware. It doesn't much matter here because all votes are recorded electronically separately, but if not, we would have to have a roll call vote for every item in this instance because, again, because he's remote, he'll have to announce his vote verbally. But other than that, things are pretty much the same as usual. We do need to allow for, if there is anyone participating remotely, there likely won't be, but if there is anyone participating remotely, they're entitled to make comments as well on any items that are on the agenda or on any non-agenda items. So, you bet.
All right, and then I believe our city announcement to make as well for an agenda. Yes.
Eric, your mic's not on.
Thank you. Yeah, Administrator Ring, you have also an agenda item to be added.
Yes, thank you. I did receive a request from Congressman Lamotha's office late last week after our agenda was finalized, requesting that a letter be put on the a letter of support for H.R. 1586. It is called the Forest Protection and Wildland Firefighter Safety Act of 2023. So I did draft a letter of support for your consideration. Put it on. We're requesting that this, in accordance to Government Code Section 549.54.2, we're requesting that the council take action on this item being added tonight, given the fact that it was received late and the deadline for it is tomorrow. So that's the sense of urgency for it. But I can give you a little more background on this if you like. It's the letter of support would allow firefighters to continue to use a retardant right now that there's some litigation going on that would prevent firefighters from using retardant during fighting fires and require them to go through a permit process. And the congressman has proposed this legislation to allow firefighters to continue to use retardant as needed for fighting fires. And our checked with our fire crew on this; they are in full support of this as well. So that would be added to the consent number 11.5. So there's that item, and then also one other correction I'd like to make on item number. It is number 16 on the regular agenda. It currently reads, appoint 2 city council members to the County Library Ad Hoc Committee, and the request actually is appoint 1 primary and 1 alternate. So that would just be the correction for that we can address that when we get to that item later on this evening. And that's all I have.
Vice Mayor, the correct procedure, just as a sort of de facto parliamentarian, you would move to approve the agenda
Yes.
with the modification that the city administrator mentioned. Then you would need to ask, are there any motions is there a motion to add the item to the
Right.
agenda that was not previously posted?
Right.
And that would take a motion, a second, and
Yes.
a vote of 5/7 of the council
Right.
to do.
So at this time, adding agenda 11.5, the letter from Doug Lamotha, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with the addition of 11.5 as discussed?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Have a vote?
And the mayor is not currently on with us yet. Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Super. All right, to back up a little bit, so Madam Clerk, do we have our group here to do the pledge?
Yes.
All right. So I believe this is a group from Ophir School?
We are.
Super.
Yeah, thank you for having us again today. I wanted to let you know that we've extended this practice to our school board as well. So we gather students and have them start the Pledge of Allegiance at the school board now too. So thank you for the opportunity. This is one of my students from Ophir Elementary School.
My name is Isabella. So saying the Pledge of Allegiance helps form a connection to our country, the United States of America. We are a country with divisory population. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance instills a sense of patriotism for all people. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we honor the flag and everything it represents. We say the Pledge of Allegiance to start our day at schools, to begin official meetings or ceremonies, and even at a special event like a ball game. We would like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's great. To always encourage any of our schools to just engage in the public affairs like this. I think this is a great learning opportunity for our students and to have that ownership and buy-in and understanding what goes on here. So thank you.
I agree.
Yeah.
And public speaking, we all get our heart rate up a little tiny bit.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Super. All right, moving on to presentations and proclamations. Madam Clerk, do we have someone to receive this?
Mr. Vice Mayor, we do have several members of the board here, so I don't know if you want one or all of them to come up with you. But.
Do you have a microphone?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we could have the members of the board, the Oroville Concert Association. Really appreciate all that you do, and I'd like to go ahead and read this. A proclamation in recognition of the Oroville Concert Association celebrating 70 years. Whereas the Oroville Concert Association, OCA, an all-volunteer nonprofit, began in the summer of 1953 by hosting performances at Oroville High School until they later moved to the State Theater. And whereas the OCA has dedicated 70 years to enhancing the quality of life in Oroville by bringing live professional performances to our community, and the organization continues to grow and thrive to this day. And whereas their mission is to offer every man, woman, and child in our community the opportunity to experience the magic of affordable, live, quality performances, and they accomplish this by bringing professional artists to our community to perform. And whereas each season the OCA continues to bring 5 live performances to our historic and beautiful State Theater, ensuring that professional performing arts remain accessible and affordable for our community. And whereas the OCA, through their free matinees for youth, has provided thousands of youth their first opportunity to attend a concert, to be delighted with music, educated in culture and arts, and experienced professional artists. And whereas 70 years later, the OCA continues to make a lasting impact on our community through their dedication to the arts community. Now, therefore, I, Eric Smith, Vice Mayor of the City of Oroville, in concurrence with Oroville City Council, hereby recognizes the Oroville Concert Association for their dedication to community for the past 70 years and extend our sincere appreciation for the positive impact that their contribution has made on enriching and improving the quality of life in Oroville. Thank you very much. And so, would anyone like to make a recipient speech?
Well, is it on?
Yes, it's on.
Okay. I wouldn't want to do this myself because Linda is now the president, but I have been president for probably 35 of the last 70 years. Not of the first 20, though. And I just want to say we thank the community, and we need the community's support because we can't support the theater and the community without your supporting us in presence and in sharing the information. And so I just want to advertise that we are open for your presence to enjoy us also. And thank you for recognizing our contribution to this wonderful community.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Let's give them an applause again. Yeah, one of the emphasis that we've had as of late is our docent program for our 5 museums. What a treasure here in Oroville to have 5 beautiful museums, and so we also need to see those opportunities elevated with our docents and more volunteerism. So, just kind of bear that in mind as well. All right, moving on to public communication. Hearing of non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, do we have any blue cards turned in?
Mr. Mayor, I have one blue speaker, Bill Spear.
Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council, come to pray with you all this evening. In Hebrews it says, faith is evidence. It says, now faith is evidence of things hoped for and substance of things not seen. It was about 8 years ago when the Father's House was prayer walking downtown Oroville that we was prayer walking with them. At that time, we were, the Hope Center was sharing their office with us. We'd walk underneath the bridge, past the building that we're in right now. We'd pray over it. We prayed over City Hall. We, for 40 days, walked the streets of Oroville praying. And then it was about that time I started coming to city council meetings and praying also for our city council. And it's just amazing the evidence and the substance of the things that God has done in our ministry and also in the city since then. And so I'm encouraged for this new year, the things that God has for our city, and honored to be able to serve our city and to intercede. So, Father, we thank you for all that you're doing. We thank you for all of the rain. And it's easy to complain, oh, it's raining so much, but you're breaking the drought. And, Lord, you are bringing provision for this new year, a year of abundance. And I pray for our city council this evening that you would give them that supernatural wisdom that's from heaven to be good stewards of what you have given them, to continue to do supernatural things far above our ability, far above our resources for your kingdom and for your glory, that you would help our city to grow and prosper, that all of those who serve, Lord, we pray for 100-fold in the seed that they sow, and for our police and fire department, for all the service groups, for the rescue mission. We thank you for them and the breakthrough that you're finally doing there because of all their years and years of faithfulness. For the Hope Center and their faithfulness. There's so many wonderful people in our city, and I just lift them all up. And I pray that you would be with each and every organization, with each and every church, with each and every council member and city staff, that you would bless their families and their home and their children and their grandchildren. And we even pray for all those out there that are homeless and less fortunate and in the jails, that they would have a breakthrough, that they would have a touch from you. We thank you that for your word. It says, ask and you shall receive, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be open. In Jesus' name, amen.
Vice Mayor, that is the only speaker that I have for non-agenda items.
Thank you. Moving on to consent calendar. I trust that the council has an opportunity to review all the items on the consent calendar. Is there any items that you would wish to pull? No? Hearing none? Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have the roll. Thank you.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay, moving on to regular business. Mid-year financial review. I would assume, Ruth,
That's me.
You have the floor.
That's
Take
me.
it away.
I also am happy to be here. What's that? I don't hear very well. So good evening, Vice Mayor Smith and council members. Going to review tonight revenues and expenditures in the general fund for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, the current year that we're in. It is on the staff report. I'm going to start on page 4, and I'm going to display my screen so everyone can follow along.
I have it up, but it's showing it's black on my end.
Well, we'll just move on. So on page 4 of the staff report, the first graph that we have is general fund revenues. So for the general fund revenues, the first line that I want to call your attention to is the finance department. We received a little more than we had anticipated, more than we budgeted for, so there is a corresponding budget There's a corresponding request for a budget adjustment in the recommendations portion of the staff report. The next one that I want to call your attention to is the building department. So building fees look like they're down for the first part of the year. Most of the current development was collected in the prior year, because if you look around the city, there's quite a bit of development going on. And we've sat down with Don, and we discovered that most of those fees were collected in the prior fiscal year and not in the first 6 months of the current year. So they did pick up in January, and continuing through the end of the year, we should see those start to pick back up. Code enforcement was the next line I'd like to call your attention to. We had only budgeted $17,000 for citations. We didn't realize, or we didn't have a good estimate of the code enforcement grant that we started receiving funds for. So we've received a lot more revenue in the code enforcement budget that we had expected. So there's also a budget adjustment, corresponding budget adjustment in the recommendations portion on that too. So that was it for the revenues. If you want to go to page 5, we'll go over the expenditures for the year. The first line, the city administrator budget has 80% of it remaining, meaning we only use 20% of it. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
You guys can see that, right?
Zoom in a little.
Yeah, that's not
Thank
this.
you, Jackie.
I'm on the next page. Yeah. Okay. So I guess
Ruth,
Jackie's,
do you want to ask? a
Jackie's
question?
pulling it
Goodson,
up on the agenda.
Councilwoman Goodson has a question.
And I'm just, clarification in the code enforcement.
Sure.
The annual budget, 17,000. Ron, can you speak to there's a drastic increase depending on how you look at it. And I was just recalling when you first came aboard and you were working with the skeletal crew, the first month you cited, or were there approximately 4,000 claims?
So the increase in the budget is a result of outside services. And I kind of want to give you a scenario. When the police department arrests somebody, they take them to jail. They have a district attorney's office there to prosecute their cases for them. When code enforcement addresses an issue, we rely on our legal services for abatement warrants, letters that are sent out, consultations, direction on legal direction, and they sometimes have to handle administrative hearings. There's quite a bit of cost in that we weren't aware.
So prior to you coming aboard, that was
We were
pretty
not
much had
using
been
that.
we didn't, that didn't exist.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
So if you wanted to know more about the hazard mitigation grant, that was a grant that we've applied for after the Camp Fire, and we had an influx of population in our city. And so this is the first remittances that we're finally getting from that grant that we applied for many years ago. So that's a really nice, they're reimbursing us for a lot of our positions. So we get to see more of that, hopefully. So moving on to the general fund expenditures. The first line, the city administrator budget, is only, we only use 20% of it. There's 80% left. That's due to the prior city administrator went back to being police chief. And so that we stopped charging the city administrator budget last September. And also there was a part-time interim city administrator that we stopped paying in December. And the next line is our city attorney. We had some billing catch up in February or March, so that budget only shows that we he is less than 20%, but actually he caught up in his billing in the current year, so that should be reflected in the next go around. The next one I want to talk about is risk management. We did pay a little more than budgeted. It's been a moving target every budget to figure out what is our insurance cost. So this is insurance costs. And we thought we did a good job, but then we had a damage for claim for like $22,000. So it kind of blew that budget up. So there's also a budget adjustment request in the recommendation portion of the staff report. The next one is code enforcement. So since we're having more revenue, we're asking for a budget adjustment of offsetting expenses for the new revenue. Moving on to the fire. The fire shows that we have 96% of our budget left over, and that's because as of December, we received no billings from CAL FIRE. That changed in March. They billed us for the first quarter, and 2 weeks later, they billed us for the second quarter. So it is about $1.8 million that we paid out on that contract in March. So it's just not reflected in this report. Moving on to the next page, the district tax fund. There's only one revenue source in the district tax fund, and it is tracking with our projections. We've been very, very good and fortunate on how we've been projecting the sales tax revenue. Sometimes it's exceeded our expectations, but I think we're leveled out, and it's a very conservative number, and I think we're tracking to be right on track this year. And the expenditures are a little under budget in some of these departments, and that's due to vacancies in positions. There's 2 budget adjustment requests in this, and the first one is for fire. The expense of $17,309. Those were lingering expenses from the prior year that ended up in this year. So I just asked for a budget adjustment to cover that, just make it zero, because there will be no more expenses in fire for the rest of the fiscal year. And then in Public Works, we had budgeted a half-time engineer, and it's ended up that we're getting billed for full-time. So I'm just asking for a budget adjustment in the Public Works Department, too. So back to the staff report, I wanted to finish off my review with the debt section. Go back up to the debt section. I just like to review where we are with our debt. We have one loan to the American River Bank for $2.1 million, $2.2 million. Council gave me a authorization last October to pay it off. So I thought I could do it by the end of that week, but I ended up contacting them, and they said that I couldn't pay it off until the next payment. And the next payment is April 3rd. So we ended up having to pay a little extra, ask for the payoff amount. So I am asking for authority to pay an extra $54,417.86 and pay that off on April 3rd. If the council approves the staff report, I will do that. The other debt that we have is our new pension obligation bonds. This one paid off our first pension obligation bond issuance. The balance right now is $18,855,000. As we heard from our pension obligation bond consultants, we already owe another $11 million due to the investment funds or investment return from CalPERS didn't hit their mark last year. And so we have not got that bill yet. We'll probably get that in August, but we wanted to give you the news ahead of time when we heard it. So we'll have to figure out how to attack that $11 million. So our total debt for the general fund is $21 million. And for the successor agency, we still owe some bonds of $11 million, and those will be paid off in 2031. So I am open for any questions.
So that's a huge, oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Councilwoman.
Good.
Hey, you're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought Thompson was in the queue.
All right.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Thank you so very much. My apology. I really did think I was at home. So the 11 million bond, and that's due in 2000, is it 35?
2031 will be paid off.
And is that the one just a few years ago it was I think 30 million. Is that the same one?
No,
Okay, this
no.
is a different one.
Yeah,
The successor bond.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know which one I'm talking about?
yeah, the successor agency bond, yeah. I'm not sure if it was 30 million, but I think we pay down maybe $1 million a year.
Okay, and we do that from the property tax?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, our property tax revenue that we get allocated from the county is diverted to the successor agency,
okay.
the prior RDA, in order to pay off this bond. So once that's paid off, there will be a nice little injection of more property tax revenue to the general fund.
All right, thank you for clarification.
Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. Ruth, could you explain again, you said the Public Works engineer that we had expected part-time and we're getting full-time. Maybe it's misunderstanding, but I know that we're behind in regards to, or at least my assumption is, my understanding is that we're behind with some of our streets and whatnot. So what exactly is he or she been working on with the engineering and just, I guess, not to nitpick on the words, but the language seemed a little odd of that we were expecting part-time and we got full-time.
Yeah.
Like how did that happen?
I'm not sure. Maybe there was a miscommunication, but we're getting charged for a full-time position in this. And as far as what he works on, I'll let Dawn speak to that. I can see she's getting ready to answer that question.
Well, we have our current part-time engineer who's a retired annuitant, so he can't work over 3 days per week, or 980 hours. And then we had budgeted for a full-time senior civil engineer in addition to our part-time engineer. We had recruited for the last 2 years and are having a difficult time filling that position because the private market or the private industry is paying so much more than government. But recently we had an engineering intern who just graduated from Chico State. He was part-time interning, and now he is a full-time engineering intern. Currently, the retired annuitant is working on a lot of over-the-counter applications for all the projects that have been coming in, and a lot of still public works projects, drainage, streets, and other things. And he's also coordinating with our contract engineers. We have 3 of them on contract to engineer all of our streets projects. So we have several coming out of engineering in the coming months.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions? Good. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
All right, I'm looking for a motion then to receive the budget adjustments as presented by Finance.
And there's also a fiscal impact of $54,417.86 to pay off the loan, the additional amount to pay off the loan.
Does that need to be or just to receive the budget? Yeah. Okay, do I have a motion?
I motion that we approve the budget adjustments as presented by Finance.
Second.
All right. Roll call.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay, moving on to our partnership with the Department of Water Resources on the salmonid habitat and Bedrock Park Lagoon improvements.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Smith and council members. Again, this is a request to consider approval for a partnership with the Department of Water Resources to partner on a grant application that has already been awarded to repair portions of the Feather River for salmon habitat, as well as the Bedrock Park Lagoon. Staff was contacted by the Department of Water Resources last August to discuss their application for this grant funding. Staff saw this as an opportunity to partner with the Department of Water Resources to build the relationship, but also to take advantage of their work in the river and incorporate the swim lagoon. The funding acquired by DWR will cover the cost of the planning, permitting, and the construction within the riverway. However, the city would be required to cover the cost of our portion of the swim lagoon work and the excavation of the material within that swim lagoon. The project will be funded primarily by 2 grants. One is the California Natural Resources Agency, and another one comes from the Central Valley Project Improvement Act. All these activities will also require obtaining permits from various agencies as well. And this partnership with DWR will allow the city to see a substantial savings in dollars and staff time, with DWR taking the lead, and this will also include the agency consultation that comes with the permitting process, completion of the initial study and proposed mitigated negative declaration, the permitting process again, engineering and design, contractor bid solicitation and selection process, as well as the contractor inspections during the construction project. The work in the main river channel consists primarily of the in-river spawning habitat for the salmon. And the lagoon portion of the project will consist of excavation of approximately 600 cubic yards of material from the entrance and 100 cubic yards from the exit of that lagoon. And this will allow increased flows, provide fish rearing habitat, as well as it will reduce the stagnation of the water within that lagoon, making it more desirable for swimming for families. Material removed from the entrance will be hauled off site, and material removed from the exit will be moved to the south bank of that lagoon. The lower parking lot of Bedrock Park will be used for staging area, and that is an estimated time frame of 7 to 10 days for that staging, so the park will be closed during that time. City will sign that closure appropriately as necessary. And this is an estimated $100,000 that staff is requesting for the excavation and removal of this material, with a 20% contingency, as we know that as projects have been bid, they've been coming back higher than anticipated, so that's why we are requesting a 20% contingency with this project. During the contractor bid and solicitation process, a separate bid will go out from DWR's for the city's component of that work. And if this bid exceeds that $100,000 with the 20% contingency, there isn't time for us to come back and request an approval for more, so the city's portion of that project will not proceed if the council approves this evening. We're requesting the funds from the Bedrock Park Building Maintenance Improvement account. But we would also like to request that that account be reimbursed with the recent settlement agreement that was made with DWR for the $800,000, but the end dollar is being realized at $570,000. So with that, staff is recommending to authorize, or for the council to authorize and direct staff to partner with the Department of Water Resources for this grant opportunity and to reactivate our swim lagoon. And also we have Sabrina Bell and Eric C. from DWR to answer any questions specific to the grant.
Okay. Before we get on to questions from the council, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. At this time, Councilwoman Goodson.
Yes, Don, what is the current balance in the Bedrock Park account?
I did not receive that from finance. I apologize. Do we have that balance? The current balance from the Bedrock Park Building Maintenance Improvements account? It would require a budget adjustment. Mm-hmm.
Because
this was not an anticipated project when we budgeted last fiscal year. So it would require a budget adjustment from the general fund account to the Bedrock Park Building Maintenance account if the refund from the settlement from DWR was not approved or authorized by council to refund that account.
Right. So it's just good information to know.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rakes.
Thank you. I first wanted to thank DWR for considering this partnership with us and looking at ways that we can move progress in development along our river in partnership with you guys. I do really appreciate that. I wanted to point out one thing that we do have a settlement of $570,000, which would reimburse this expense. But do we feel confident that $100,000 plus a 20% contingency is going to meet the needs, or is it likely that we might end up not having this done?
This was based on an engineer's estimate that came out of the estimate process for the whole project.
All right, so we do feel confident?
We feel 99% confident.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Thompson?
Thank you. I probably just need more education on this. My understanding is that the river is DWR's responsibility.
Amen.
And part of the reason why some of this is having to be done is because of the incident in 2017 with all that silt?
Silt,
Yeah,
yes.
that kind of covered over some of the natural rocks and gravel that was there. So why is it that the city's having to spend $100,000 of money that could go towards our parks, towards a river that is in the authority of DWR to maintain?
No, and that's a good question. Bedrock Park being a city park, the swim lagoon has historically been a part of that park. And so following that spillway incident, we kind of lost that lagoon as a recreational component of Bedrock Park. The city has responsibility from the high water mark upward from the river, but it is also DWR's, and there's also State Fish and Wildlife also has responsibility for the river as well. Again, this is the olive branch to a flourishing partnership with DWR, if you will. And again, there is a substantial savings beyond the expenditure of $100,000 for the city not having to pursue all of the permitting and the environmental process and things like that. So this $100,000 seems like a lot, but in the bigger picture, it's a very small amount. And considering our end goal is to have a recreational park from Highway 70 up to the Feather River Nature Center, that creates more recreational opportunities for our community. And this is just one small component of that bigger picture.
Thank you. I guess, again, the part of Bedrock Park being the swim lagoon, like you said, and part of the damage that's there is because of the incident in 2017. So in my opinion, the refurbishing and the repair of the lagoon, it should fall on the shoulders of DWR for them to repair that, not for the city to, again, the grand scheme of things, $100,000 is pennies, but for me, it's a little bit of principle. I know that around 40 million, 44 million, something like that, they spent in parking lots on the other side of the spillway. And so now they're on this side, which I've been repeatedly, Eric knows, annoyingly asking them to do some things for improvement on this side. It's because there's a lot of money going towards fishing and boats and whatnot, and boat ramps and all that. And the population of Oroville, very few of us have boats. We got a kayak, but as far as the recreation aspect that was lost, for them to come on this side and invest, to me, it's a little bit hypocritical to ask the city to repair something that I don't want to, that because of some maintenance issues with the spillway on DWR's shoulders, that they would come back and ask us to pay $100,000, which we could put towards our parks.
Right.
When they've, on the other side of the dam, spent over $40 million in just parking lots. So I personally would like to see DWR not only pay for the full repair of the lagoon, but also pay for some additional improvements to the recreation for our community and our citizens. I think they owe it to our community. I think that rightly so, that we haven't stormed down and demanded a ton. We've there's a committee now for oversight and all that. But as far as the actual on this side of the spillway, helping to recreate some of that lost recreation, I think that it's within their wheelhouse. It's within their purview. It's within their authority to pay for the full expense. Again, like you said, our responsibility is on the high water mark. This is not in that. Is that correct? This is not in the high water mark. This is actually below the water level down there. And actually the reason why is because of the incident that was caused by lack of maintenance on the spillway.
That is my understanding.
Councilwoman Goodson?
I'm going to piggyback off of what Councilman Thompson said. I don't know if I'll be as diplomatic as you, but thank you for pointing out the obvious in regards to DWR and why we have this situation in the first place. And so I just want to, reiterate, let's not get distracted by the charm, because that's what distracted the community 50 plus years ago. So we always appreciate an olive branch, good faith, except, but we did that before. So I would just say, I think they should take full responsibility for this. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Councilman Thompson?
Thank you. And just to add, I would be open to an olive branch from DWR to fully redo the walkway that we have, the path that we have, for them to give us some lighting, some better path, and even maybe go even farther down the road so that we can have some more recreation. I would be willing to have an olive branch there to throw in $100,000 on that project.
Councilwoman Johnstone?
Thank you. That was going to be my question, and piggybacking off of both of you was having them take responsibility for the actual dredging and cleaning up of the waterway, but providing better security down there once it is cleaned up, the lighting, the safety element for our families of this community to be able to actually utilize it.
Absolutely.
And making it safe.
Councilwoman Riggs?
Thank you. Don, I know that we are currently working with Melton Design Group on a master plan for the levee trail and many of the improvements that are discussed. Where are we on that process?
That is getting back into the community outreach discussion or community meeting process. Melton Design was trying to finish up our final stages of the Hewitt Park plan so we can get that out for bid and get groundbreaking going on Hewitt Park. And then in the coming weeks, we're going to, or in the next month, I think in April, we are starting the community outreach meetings again for the Feather River master plan for our walkways and recreational areas.
Have we had any partnership with DWR on that planning process?
Not yet. No, the outreach was going to commence with that and Feather River Recreation Park District, as well as Chamber and DBA.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Thompson?
Thanks. And I don't want to be, I have friends that work for DWR, so, especially our local people they're amazing and they're top shelf. But regarding the DWR as a whole, I don't necessarily see for our community making it right, that's just one person, but I am a council person. One thing that we can do as an olive branch is not to charge them rental of our parking lot while they dredge the lagoon and take care of their river.
That is something that, yes, we could consider.
So I have a question, and perhaps maybe Eric C. would be willing to comment on, step into the fray here.
Is he here?
He is, yeah. So the engineer from DWR is here and present. But so the question would be, if this partnership fails tonight, then what does that look like in a moving forward? I mean, that is a beloved spot, and I remember years ago, children playing and enjoying the lagoon. And it is something that obviously needs to be addressed. I mean, I think everyone is in full agreement. But so if we say, no, we don't want a partnership in this way tonight, then what does that project look like? And then perhaps where can we go from here?
Thank you. Eric C. with the Department of Water Resources. Appreciate the opportunity, and I Thank you, Scott, for the comments. I just want to make sure everyone understands I'm on sort of the implementation side of DWR, not the policy side of the department. So, I implement the policy, and, we're very, proud of the projects we've done so far. Thank you for recognizing the recreation projects we did up at Lake Oroville. Those projects are part of our recreation plan, and the recreation plan is within our FERC recreation plan. It's all within our FERC project boundary. So that's why those projects are in that area. And we did do a little more than just parking lots. So we built a new boat ramp facility. We extended access for the marinas up there and a variety of other projects. So, I think it's been very, very exciting to get all that construction going. We're done with just about all of the projects. We have one kind of lingering one still, but the top stage of the Loafer Point boat ramp just came underwater, so people are launching on it now. So it's pretty exciting for us. As far as projects down here in the Oroville area, this project is kind of a unique project. It's a grant-funded project, and it really has nothing to do with mitigation or anything with regard to Oroville Dam. There was some grant funding that was available as part of the Prop 68 program. The California Natural Resources Agency saw that there was some unspent funding that was still available, and so they reached out to their different departments within that agency, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, DWR, and state parks, and said, do you have any projects that could be constructed? We have some money here just sitting on the table that no one seems to be picking up, and so that was extended out to us, and we actually have some experience. We did do a mitigation type project back in 2014 in the river, where we put spawning gravel in the river for Chinook salmon, and just about doubled the number of spawning reds that occurred that year. So that was pretty gratifying to see that quick response. We put this clean spawning gravel in the river, fish got on it, and immediately spawned. We did a bunch of pre-spawn surveys and post-spawn, and it was something that worked out really well. So we saw we can have this immediate effect. And so having had that experience, the question was extended to us from my executive, well, can we spend this money? Can we do a project like this? And we said, sure. We have the expertise. We don't have the new FERC license yet, so we're busy, but we're not as busy as we're going to be. So we said, okay, we'll take this on. And so we picked that up. And that was 3 years ago now. It's taken that long to get this project planned. Anything you do in a river, especially in California, has a lot of environmental permits and a lot of safeguards just in the process that you have to go through. We are, last time I looked, I think it was about $800,000 just in planning and permitting for this overall project. So it is a big lift to be able to implement a project in the river. It was actually, back up a moment, when we started planning this project, I had mentioned it at the Supplemental Benefits Fund meeting, and it was at that meeting that Chief LeGrone, I think it was one of the times he wasn't the chief, he was the administrator, but he had said, hey, can I talk to you about this for a minute? We went into his office, and he said, hey, as long as you guys are doing this project out in the river, could you come over and help us out? We have some issues with the lagoon there, the swim lagoon. And so we said we'd take a look at it, and we did. We got the biologists out there, and we actually figured out a way we could craft this project to also provide that benefit. But since the focus of the funding is on the main river and spawning gravel project, we found that we could offer the planning and the permitting, but not the project itself. And so that funding was going to have to come separately, and that's where it came from the idea of having the city do it. So and it's been a real learning process for me with the way we contract projects. DWR has a very set way we do contracting, and so it's been a very unique situation with our attorneys and our contract folks to try to figure out a way to work this other portion in, and with Don's help and Bill's help, we've been able to craft that now, and so that's the way that this arrangement would be set up the way that it is. There's going to be a separate bid item for the work done in the Bedrock Lagoon. So I just wanted to point that out. This project is not the main project that we're doing is not a mitigation project. It's actually spending money that's Natural Resource Agency money. So no state water project DWR funding is actually funding this project. It's all coming from grant funding. That'd be the only way that we could do it, because it's not really tied to any mitigation or any requirement that we actually have. So, and that's was the impetus of this project. Once the new FERC license is issued in the future, we are going to be doing a lot of new projects like this project in the river that will be funded by DWR here locally. But this is a separate project. In fact, we had to pick locations that were outside of our boundary just to not trigger having to go to FERC for approvals and that sort of thing. So Yeah, so that's what this project is about. It's not related to mitigation or anything about the dam. And I can tell you that we're already into this a lot of, for planning and permitting. If you were going to do any work at Bedrock Park and actually plan it and permit it yourself, it would be a lot more than $100,000. So.
Right.
I have two council people, I think, up for additional questions. But before we get to that, just for me, super plain, just to put it in real layman's terms, not that you're not. So kind of what I'm hearing is that this is kind of a good faith gesture that if we weren't partnering, then you're not necessarily, that lagoon would not necessarily fall within the purview. Is that what I'm hearing? So that
Correct.
By us partnering, then we're going to get something done that we otherwise might not get done. So then to go to the question I asked of you, if we say no to this tonight, then there's a potential that work would not get done in the lagoon.
That's correct. It's covered by our permits, and like I said, we're going to have a contractor out there. And this is one of the things that Bill brought up was that I think Bill's here. We have he saw the benefit of us already having all the mobilization that occurs when you're doing a project like this with the heavy equipment and everything, getting them out there, figuring out the entrance ramps and how they're going to get into the water. Just all of that planning had to be thought through, and it just takes time and engineers and biologists, and it's just there's a lot that goes to it. So the fact that we're going to be doing that anyways in the river channel right next to it, we're just going to be spending a few days over in the with that same equipment to do this work in the lagoon area. So it wouldn't happen if we don't have this agreement.
Okay. I guess another way of saying it, we feel like you should just do that, but the reality is, if we state that, then this won't happen.
That is correct. And we couldn't because for anything else, it wouldn't be reimbursable for the grant.
Okay. So Councilwoman Riggs.
Thank you. And much of what you said, I was going to restate in that the level of permitting and planning is way beyond what we would be able to do on our own. And I would hate for us to lose the opportunity for a swimming recreation at Bedrock Park and for improving amenities at Bedrock Park because we want to stick you guys with $100,000 instead of taking it on ourselves. So I know that we have some relationship to define with DWR, and we have a long history, and we have a long future as well. And so for me, I feel like the $100,000 to create recreation, water-based recreation in this lovely water season is going to be really beneficial, and doing it now at a $100,000 cost is better than waiting until the FERC license gets signed or DWR has some generous spirit rise up in them to just decide to up and do it. I'm not going to count on that. So that's my first comment, is that I think that it would be petty of our council, or it'd be petty of us to decide that we don't want to put in that $100,000 just because we want to point fingers or we feel like it's your fault. So, I mean, Riverbend, Feather River had to do all of the repairs to their park. Yes, they had support, but it is also our recreation area. And then the other thing, so now this is where I'm going to be a little bit firmer with you. You mentioned all of the river-based opportunities for recreation that we'll have when the FERC license is signed, and that you guys are committed to that. So my question to you is, what are you guys doing to help move the FERC licensing along?
We have sent letters to FERC for quite a while. Over the years we've sent delegations to Washington D.C. to try to encourage the process along. If you look in the record, it's been the Department of Water Resources and the state water contractors that have been the only entity that has really been trying to advocate for the new FERC license. So. We would really appreciate any additional support in that regard. We can certainly send another letter, but it's we've already done that, and so I kind of feel like we're at this point now. What more can we do? And we do bring it up when we have meetings with FERC. They of course tell us they can't tell us when the new license is going to get issued. It's just part of their process. They can't do. We always kind of nudge them along anyway. So, but we have been. A constant supporter for the new license issuance. And I, would want to also point out when I talked about our FERC license or our recreation plan a moment ago covering Lake Oroville, that is true. That was recognized during the relicensing proceedings back in the 2000s. That, the FERC recreation plan just covered, Lake Oroville, the forebay, the afterbay, our FERC project boundary, and that was recognized by the stakeholders at the time. That hey, what about the city of Oroville? How do we figure out a way to extend the benefits of your project and have it come down into the Oroville area? And as far as being part of FERC jurisdiction, since we're out of FERC jurisdiction, it couldn't be part of the FERC license. But that was where we came up with the idea of the supplemental benefit or the supplemental benefits fund to provide that benefit, to actually provide funding directly to the community. And I'm on the committee as DWR's representative. We are not a voting member, and that was the setup of this committee. It's the Federal Recreation Parks District and the City of Oroville that have control of the funds. My job is just to provide the funds to the committee, and the steering committee actually makes the determination. And that was the agreement that DWR wouldn't be involved in the decision process, but we would provide the funding, and we've done that now. I love this Eagle. That was one of the early projects that actually was a result of that supplemental benefits fund money back in 2007. Been a lot of other projects over the years. The Nelson Pool just recently, the upgrades there, State Theater, the Veterans Memorial, of course, Riverbend Park. So there's a variety of projects that have been built over the years with that funding. There's going to be more when the new license is issued. It's going to be $1 million a year that's going to be going to the city. So but that was the idea, and the impetus of that was just figuring out a way to extend the benefits of the Oroville project to the community, and that was the Supplemental Benefits Fund.
Thank you. And I know that you guys you have a 1-year extension, and it keeps getting a 1-year extension. And the FERC license says $1 million to the Supplemental Benefits Fund when it's signed. Are you guys paying anything to the Supplemental Benefits Fund at this time?
Yes, we've put $11 million into it so far.
And how much in the past 2 years?
100 and we did 3 million. The last big installment was 3 million. That was right before COVID. And then we just completed the last payment back in February for 135,000.
For how much?
For 135,000. That was the last of that 11 million.
Okay. So, but it's 2023, and COVID was 3 years ago. And you guys aren't doing this. You guys are not still doing the $1 million a year.
Okay, so the $1 million a year starts when the new license is issued.
Right, but you're still receiving the benefits of the license extensions, and we are not receiving the benefits of a license being signed.
That is correct.
Thank you. That's all. But I do appreciate the partnership with this possible.
Right, and I think it's it just behooves everyone to have the license issued as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. We would very much welcome that.
I'm glad you agree.
Vice Mayor Smith, I have a question if I could ask.
We've got two other council people,
Okay.
and then we'll go ahead and we'll segue over to you. Councilman Thompson?
Thank you. I guess I like hearing myself talk tonight. I guess it might be considered petty, but if I own a tree and the tree is my responsibility, and my tree falls through my neighbor's house and their repairs are $500,000, and I go over to them and say, but hey, let me cut you a deal. If you were to repair your house by yourself, it would cost you $500,000. But if you throw in $100,000, I'll repair it for you. To me, it may seem petty to some, but to me, it'd be just responsible. It'd be the right thing to do in principle for the person that broke my home to fix it. So, you and I got nothing against you. I know, but you're the only person I can talk to regarding the figurehead of DWR. So when I first started with this SBF, when conversations came about renegotiation of the license, I was firmly against it. The more I'm around DWR, and it definitely my impression and my experience of DWR and their treatment of Oroville, I am way more open to renegotiation of the license now than I have ever been in my experience with DWR. When it comes to projects that are on the other side, again, that have to do with boat ramps or parking lots, it just seems like money's no option. Let's just build another parking lot and do another, which are fine, but that only benefits a very small majority or portion of the city of Oroville residents. And when I have almost begged you on behalf of the citizens to talk to DWR about investing on this side. It's just kind of been talking like a dead wall. I mean, just nothing's there, and very little response to, I see over 44. I think it's how much in millions they spent on parking lots over there?
I think we're about 35 million or so.
I remember one market was like 42 million.
That was the estimate. Like I said, we still have one project that's lingering out there.
So that's a lot of money in parking lots. And then when it comes to, okay, now we're going to do something on this side, I mean, in comparison, financially, this is pennies compared to the money that's been spent on the other side of the dam. The willingness to invest on this side has been almost non-existent, and this is only further evidence of that, because it isn't necessarily, just like you said, DWR or state water contract. This is a grant, and so this isn't even necessarily from that pool. It's like, okay, here's some extra money, and we'll spend it. We'll use these smaller amounts of money towards benefiting the city if you guys throw it in as well. To me, it's just it to me shows further just lack of proper being a good neighbor for the city of Oroville with the Department of Water Resources to in the scheme of the money that's been spent on that side to come to us and ask us for $100,000 to fix something that really is the result of mismanagement of not blaming you, Eric, but of it, which is proven from the Department of Water Resources in the spillway, to ask us to help in the repair costs of something that was their fault. So I have a lot, and I understand. I want it to happen, but at the same time, it's like, let's look at what's going on here, and the fact that you guys are just throwing money over there. We've been asking you for years to do something on this side, and now we're doing something small over here that really benefits the fish with a side benefit with the lagoon for some recreation, and we're having to foot some of the bill. To me, that's really a hard pill to swallow.
Okay, well, I just want to clarify, we're not requesting funding from the city of Oroville. So
100,000?
We are not requesting that funding. We are going to construct a project in the river. If you would like to have this work done in the lagoon,
anything to benefit the city,
you're going to need to pay for that portion of the project.
Anything, yeah. If you want anything to benefit the city, even if it's repairing something that DWR did, that we will have to pay for, is what you're saying.
Well, as far as what DWR did, I can't comment on that. So, okay, I'm sorry.
Do you see the perception though that I'm seeing here? Like this benefits
I
the
see
fish.
it, but I really cannot comment on that. Things related to the spillway emergency. But I will say that this project is separate from the spillway emergency. It's not mitigation for that. It's actually it's a separate project.
The funds are not mitigation funds, but the actual work that's being done technically is mitigation, because the damage there is from the spillway incident. All the silt that filled that up and took away what was there before. It really is the process. Even though the money isn't mitigation money, the actual work is mitigation, because it's bringing back something that was prior to the 2017 incident.
Well, we're not working with silt in the river. So the material that we're working with is part of the riverbed that isn't from what happened in the spillway.
So there was no silt that came in the lagoon during the 2017 incident?
The material we're moving is not from that silt material moved out during the event with the high flows, just like what's going on right now.
So the material that's in the lagoon, none of that, you're saying 0% of that stuff that's in the lagoon right now is from the event that happened in 2017 that put silt in the whole river?
I can't speak to percentages of what's there. I am familiar with the habitat in the river, with the substrates in the Feather River, the materials that the fish use for spawning and rearing. I'm very familiar with that lagoon because I happen to fish over there myself personally quite a bit. So in the main river, but this project is going to increase river flow into that lagoon area, with the intended benefit that it's going to increase or improve the quality of the water there. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing some channel reconfiguration to increase water flow there. silt that happened back in 2017, that material moved out. We did studies and were able to identify that. We did do a gravel spawning gravel project back in 2017 as well, a small one, but it was upstream of there. So we did place clean spawning gravel in the river. As far as getting into responsibility and mitigation for this, that's really a legal matter, and so I really can't speak to that. The things related to the relicensing, so it kind of seems like we're talking about three different things all at once here. So I know it might be a little hard to follow, but regarding your questions about the settlement agreement and everything, I think that'd be something good to take up with my management. I mean, where the city and the Department of Water Resources are partners in the settlement agreement, and there's no reason why settlement agreement partners can't have a discussion about that. So, when you're talking about renegotiating, that's getting into a policy issue. So it would be best to have that discussion with my management. But that certainly that can happen. We've been waiting anxiously for the new license to get issued. It hasn't happened yet. It's been very frustrating for us here, especially here on the front line, that want to get this thing going and get to it. This habitat improvement program that we have planned for the river, we'd love to get that underway. The other recreation projects, by the way, the recreation projects that we constructed were drafted by the city of Oroville and the other stakeholders back in the 2000s. One of the things that the community wanted back at that time during the relicensing proceeding is they didn't want a promise from DWR to draft some recreation plan in the future. They wanted to have an actual recreation plan with specific projects in it that DWR would have to build to make it easy to be able to track and keep DWR accountable. And DWR agreed to that. So we actually put the time in and drafted a recreation plan at that time. That's the reason why we actually have a finished product recreation plan from 2006. That's the recreation plan that we drew from to construct those boat ramps that we just built in the last few years. We had the spillway emergency. We lost recreation, around the spillway for the closures that happened for a couple of years. So that was the impetus for us to say, okay, what's in this recreation plan that we could implement right now to try to offset that impact? And that was what freed us up to go ahead and do that. And we had to go to FERC to request that they take these projects from the future recreation plan and make them part of our current rec plan so we could actually construct them now. We did that, and we implemented those projects. So that was the process that occurred when we did those projects.
Yeah,
So,
Mr. Mayor, if I could, sort of,
it's
again, as the de facto parliamentarian, I want to bring this back to the agendized matter at hand and sort of have the discussion focus on that. Don't get me wrong, these are all excellent subjects of discussion, but I think maybe for another day and another time and another agenda item. But
Okay, so there was a couple more questions. So with that being said, so we have Staff Member Belser. He had a question.
My question is, if it's agreed tonight and the improvement happens, how long does that last? And is the city setting precedent saying they're responsible for the lagoon in the future?
Let's see. I guess a good way to describe this. First of all, DWR doesn't own the river channel. In fact, part of the permits we have to get is permission to actually do work in the river channel. So it's actually owned by the State Lands Commission or under that the State Lands Commission authority. So it's actually not DWR's property or anything else. So we have to get permits and permission to do a project like this in the river channel. Just like if Department of Fish and Wildlife were to do it, or state parks, or the Nature Conservancy, or some other organization, they would have to get permission to do this kind of work in the river channel. As far as the lagoon at Riverbend Park, or I'm sorry, at Bedrock Park. My understanding is that's part of the river channel, so there is that State Lands Commission jurisdiction, but there's also a city jurisdiction that I don't really understand very well. So, in fact, our part of our agreement is just to be able to do the work there and have the city's agreement to do the work there. As far as long-term maintenance, it would be the city's responsibility.
Councilwoman Riggs?
Thank you. My first comment is to Councilman Thompson, and that I'm sorry that it came across as I was calling you petty. I was thinking more of myself in wanting to be petty, not in you. I totally understand your output, and so I apologize for that. I hope you'll forgive me.
Absolutely, you're fine.
Thanks. I am a millennial, so I am fairly petty at times, but I wanted to, I'll admit it. Don't put that in the paper, thank you. I do want to ask and re-point out something you said that I think that we lost track of in our conversation, and that you guys were planning on doing work, and we said, hey, can you think of us? Can we be a part of this in a way? Can you consider the city of Oroville? And you guys jumped in and said yes. But in order to cover that, in order to really make that happen, we need to step in with some funds. And so it's not that you guys are coming to us asking for money, but you guys were doing a project. We saw an opportunity for collaboration and said, hey, is this something that we can get done? Is this a recreation, a goal that we have for Bedrock Park that we can get done under your guys' permits? And I appreciate that you guys thought, yeah, we could. So thank you. And I just wanted to refocus it that way of it's not them asking for funds, but coming alongside us to do something that we already wanted done.
Thank
Councilman
you.
Weber.
That describes it better than I did. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have two questions. Well, three. And since the dam incident, how much money has DWR spent on that side of the dam?
On recreation,
Yeah,
recreation
on all the
projects.
repairs and everything. On
I think it's
recreation.
about 35 million so far.
35, and then how much on this side?
On this side, I
Particularly the low flow channel right here.
I don't know. We did a project during 2017. We did a spawning gravel project, not nearly as big as this one, but we did do one back during that time.
You did-
But I don't know how much.
Since the dam incident, though?
That was in 2017. Yeah, it was that summer.
Okay, so approximately how much money have you guys spent then?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, so it's certainly not 35 million.
No.
Is it $1 million?
I don't know. It's
Is it 400,000? I mean, okay, never mind, I'll move on. How much would these permits cost us if we moved on this on our own? Approximately, do you know?
You know, it just I can tell you how much we've spent so far, and I know it's in excess of 800. That was the last time I saw the discussion about it, but that was a little while ago. But you know, that's not for oh no, that's for the overall project. But it's you know, it's like if you're gonna have a renovation done in your house, you might decide, okay, well I'm gonna go ahead and do the kitchen while I'm doing it already, as long as I got the contractors in here in a moment. You know, so there's definitely that economy of scale you get by adding on. So let's just say hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I think we've well hashed this issue out, and I don't want you to feel like you can't ever come back. So, we appreciate the candidacy.
I recently celebrated my 30th anniversary here in Oroville, and you know, we're working at the lake on fishery stuff for the Department of Water Resources, and you know, so I've been at it for a while, and you know, I know it's always with the best intentions of Oroville in mind.
Yeah, and this is a complex issue, as you pointed out. There's legal matters, there's permitting. It's a very involved issue, and I do appreciate the fact that if we do approve this, that we will get a beautiful lagoon back into our possession, which at the end of the day, I think our community deserves that. You know, I guess part of this discussion is who's responsible for delivering that. But here, nevertheless, here we are. With no further ado, looking to the council for a motion to authorize. Let me just to the city attorney. Do we need to include in the motion the reimbursement from the DWR settlement piece? Do we need to include that? Because that was brought up in discussion.
I don't think you need to include that necessarily, no.
All right. So I'm looking for a motion to authorize and direct staff to partner with DWR Resources for the rehabilitation of a Bedrock Park swim lagoon for an estimated cost of $100,000 with a 20% contingency coming from the reimbursement from DWR settlement.
I have a question before we make a motion if possible. So what authority does DWR have to use our park for their work on the other side of the river to, you know, pull this drudgery and put rocks and all that? What authority do they have to use our property?
They have the authorization from the city through this staff report authorization if the council wishes to move forward with it.
So we are, if we move forward with this, depending on whatever motion happens here, that that we're not only giving them $100,000, but we're letting them use for their other aspects, the putting rocks and all that for the salmon, we're going to let them have that also for free. I say we.
Their portion for the salmon habitat will be on the north side of the river. They're only requesting use of Bedrock Park for 7 to 10 days for the lagoon portion of the river.
So who owns the north side there?
That would be State Park, or excuse me, DWR, and a private party.
I move that we authorize and direct staff to partner with DWR for the rehabilitation of Bedrock Park Swim Lagoon at an estimated cost of $100,000 with a 20% contingency.
Do I have a second?
Did I see Mayor Pittman in the queue?
Yes, so we do have Mayor Pittman joining us, all the way from the other side of the continental United States. It's 3 hours later where you are, so you're probably ready for bed.
I just got in the room.
Now, can I ask a clarifying question, just from a dollar standpoint? So is that $100,000 with a $20,000 contingency, or does that $100,000 include the 20%?
20%.
So it's 120.
That's correct.
120.
Okay, that's, I wanted to make sure that the record was clear on that.
Absolutely.
All right, Pittman.
So do we have a second?
Are we waiting on Mayor Pittman to tell us?
Mayor Pittman, did you have any comments or questions regarding this item that we've been discussing?
Oh, okay.
All right.
Showed his face.
So there's a motion on the table to approve item number, is it 12?
13.
13. Is there a second on that item?
Nobody wants to.
I'm going to
I'll
throw a
second from here.
catfish in here, and I'll second it.
Okay.
Catfish with the salmon.
All right. Can we have a vote?
Mayor Pittman, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 nos.
All right. Thank you, Eric, for coming and being willingness to take this tonight. So appreciate that. All right, moving right along to item number 14, Sank Park Perimeter Fence Final Design Presentation. So, Ms. Nevers, you are up again.
Thank you again, Vice Mayor Smith, Mayor Pittman, via Zoom, and our council. This is a review of the final design for our Sank Park fence. Following the receipt of input from our Park Commission, Historical Advisory Commission, and our City Council. For a little history on Sank Park, the lot home that resides within Sank Park is a Victorian Revival style structure that was built in 1856 by Judge Lott. Judge Lott was a gold rush pioneer. He started the first citrus exchange in California and was also a state senator. Although the home is over 167 years old, there were only 2 families that resided there. Much of the interior has been preserved to tell us how the well-to-do lived out west at that time. And the home sits within Sank Park that is named after Jesse Sank, who is married to the daughter of Judge Lott, Cornelia. So she and Jesse Sank shared their love story in this home and on the park grounds, and there's much of it throughout the history of this facility. The park covers an entire city block, which is about 1.6 acres, and for the perimeter fence, it's about 1,200 plus lineal feet of fencing that we're talking about. The park also doubles as a museum. So the museum grounds, again, were donated to the city of Oroville in 1961 by Jesse Sank. But that park is more than just a museum, and the grounds are regularly rented for weddings, events, community festivals, things like that. The park is open to the public from dusk to dawn, and so one of the reasons why we are pursuing this new fence is to secure this park so that there is no loitering, vandalism, or other activity in the evening hours. So and this is what the fence currently looks like. It's a mishmash of chain link and wood and chicken wire. There are some nice corner posts and gate posts with finials on them, but the gates themselves are not matching currently. So for a timeline of events, this discussion all began back in September of 2021 when the city staff received word that we had $177,000 allocation of per capita funding from the state parks. In March of 22, the Historic Advisory Committee made recommendations in addition to the Park Commission for their input and what they would like to see for this park fence. And the reason why the Park Commission obviously has input is because it's a park, and the Historic Advisory Commission is required to provide input because it is within the historic downtown overlay. In April 19th of 22, the council reviewed all of the recommendations and input and provided their own input. From that, we prepared a list of consolidated design elements. So what came out of the input was a 5-foot tall fence to replicate the fence of a Victorian revival home, the color to be satin black, for the fence to have clean and narrow pickets that host a pencil point top, corner posts with globe finials, 2 vehicle gates and 4 pedestrian gates, a 6-inch curb, which we have now augmented or changed to a 8-inch curb for stability. The entrance gate at Montgomery was supposed to have setback post, but we are changing that design because there's currently 2 black gas lamps sitting there. So we would like to reactivate those gas lamps. And then dusk to dawn hardware so that park can be secured and closed in the evening hours. Here's an overview of the perimeter fence. For the corners, we have chosen to bob the corners because it'll be 5 feet and it will, 5 foot tall, and it will allow easier viewing around corners. So if somebody's on a bike on the sidewalk or somebody's pushing a stroller, they have easier view around that corner. The image on the right does depict a freestanding sign. Those signs are currently there in each corner of the park. We would actually remove the sign and put that sign on that 45 angle of that fence, so it no longer blocks the view. So this is the elevation following all of that input received. It is, again, a 5-foot fence, square corner post with globe finials, an 8-inch curb at the bottom. This would be the rolling gate on the west side, nearest the coach house. This would be the gates on the east side, nearest the commercial kitchen, the pedestrian gate, and then the front entry gate. You'll see that we have a historic looking sign featuring the name Judge Lot or Judge C.F. Lot home, and that it is a, sorry, I can't read that far. Okay, visitors welcome. And so with that,
Okay.
so, well, just a few more items. The story of the lot home in the park should be a reminder to us as at the city of Oroville that we have accepted the responsibility of caring for this home and museum and the grounds for the enjoyment of our community and the visitors to preserve its history into the future. And that was really one of the intents of the donation of this facility by Jesse Sink to the city of Oroville, was that it would remain a park into the future. And currently, with all the vandalism that we've seen, there was windows broken in the lot home, a fire was set on the porch one evening, many things happened there in the evening hours. This is just one step forward in trying to secure this historical asset. Again, in the future, we would like to refurbish and reactivate the gas lamp posts. We would like to add more lighting throughout the park. Much of it has been added, but there's other components. This is just a stepping stone to that. Staff has anticipated that the bids received will exceed the $177,000, as we saw with the first two bids from this project. So staff has budgeted for an additional $450,000 to make up the difference, in addition to $29,700 for construction management. The construction management was previously approved by council. And this will bring the funds for the project, just for the construction of the project, to $627,962. So with that, I would just like to request council's authorization to move forward with that budgeted amount.
Okay, before we get to council Q&A, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay, Mr. Mayor Pittman, you're up.
Yes, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the accommodation here. I apologize for being such long distance. But on this particular issue, one of the things that we've been dealing with this fence for some time that I look for, and I see in the staff's report, is this would be a fence that we use as a standard for all the parks, not just Sanctum Park, but in the future, I'm going to guess that we're going to need fence security on a variety of parks. And I like this as a future standard fence that we'd use for all our facilities. And it also is, if we keep the same model and design for replacement and repair and panelized sections as they have here, I think this is a very good idea. Certainly, it's time for us to change the chicken wire and get it out of there before the posts rot away. So I certainly support this idea, and I thank staff for their presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Johnstone.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation. That was wonderful. My question is, with this amount of expense and for future possibilities, as Mayor Pittman said, what is our liability as far as we've already had vandalism happening? Those seem to be pretty pointy at the top. What is our liability if somebody is trying to break in and hurts themselves on these posts?
Well, that would be somebody trying to trespass when the park is closed. As far as liability for that, I would have to review that with our risk manager.
Councilman Weber?
Yeah, thank you very much. How many feet did you say?
5 feet.
No, not in height, in length.
Oh, over 1,200 lineal feet.
1,200, okay. So I went out there and measured it today. It's actually 1,084 feet.
Okay, I did an aerial estimate. I apologize.
Yeah, so I measured it. I got a rolling measure thing. So I took a tour of the whole facility today. I measured everything. It's 1,084 feet. But even at 1,200 feet, at that proposed budget, that would be $522.50 a foot. Okay, that seems incredibly ridiculous. All right, even if it were 1,100 feet, it would still be 570 feet. So $570 a foot. Who was involved in this design of this? Who came up with this design?
The actual elevation design?
No, the graphics, and who gave input into it?
Myself.
Okay. All right. And will the angles on all the corners, are they going to affect any existing trees?
They should not affect any existing trees, because where the angle will be there, it'll affect actually ivy, some vines, and some shrubs.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will, for sure, because I just did the walk around there. No, I didn't know. Had I known that it was going to be angled on the corners, I would have looked at whether or not it will affect any of the existing trees there, because they just cut down a tree last week on the bird side behind it. So it's I'd like to see it not affect any of those, because some of those trees are incredibly beautiful and
absolutely
very mature. You mentioned those gas lamps. One of them, to my recollection, and I should have paid more attention, but on the entrance on the Montgomery side, one of them is directly adjacent to the entrance right there, and the other one seems like to me it's further away. Perhaps am I recalling that incorrectly? Because I thought maybe. Anyway, it doesn't really matter about the placement. However, okay, so.
Oh, I don't have.
But I was wondering about them today, because I thought they were fascinating to me. So what is the plan for those? Are we going
I would like to see grant funding to rehab those gas lamps.
Sure.
About 10 years ago, they were still burning gas lamps. I'm not sure what has transpired since then, but I would like to reactivate them and have them, contribute to the atmosphere of that park and the historic nature of it.
Yeah, it looked, just upon preliminary inspection today, it looked to me like if we maintain them a little bit, they could be fired right up. All the working mechanisms are there, except that the globes are all broken.
Yes, so there's a company in Philadelphia that we've custom ordered the globes from in the past, and so we already have Mr. Atterbury looking into what it would cost to replace all those globes.
Yeah, okay. And then, but the lighting of the park, the gas lamps is not going to be, although it would be great to have
That's more ambiance,
yeah,
not
exactly.
functional lighting.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
But the lighting issue, as I strolled through the entire complex, I counted there's some broken lights in the gazebo type, not the gazebo, but the where they would hold weddings or whatnot.
Oh, gazebo.
Over by the commercial kitchen.
Mhm.
There's some fans in there that have no fan blades at all.
Right.
And then all the lighting is pretty much broken there. And there's 3 lights that hang along the entrance in there, and they look like they're not functioning either. And then as far as I could tell, there's no lighting at all that is aimed at the house.
There is lighting aimed at the house. There is motion sensors around the house as well. And so we have had our former city electrician, he recently resigned. He has gone through and put motion lights throughout the park. We are working with Mr. Atterbury about doing up lights around the trees to add more light.
Yep.
So we're looking at adding more light around this park as well. So there is evening hour motion sensors that do light it up pretty well. We don't want it on 24/7 to not disrupt the neyborhood, but it would obviously flick on with motion and it would alert the neighbors that there would be somebody in the park.
Well, and I'm glad you're saying that. And I'm kind of driving here because my constituents are contacting me that live directly around the park, and they're complaining about a lot of homeless activity at night, and it's very dark.
Yes.
And when you drive, anybody can drive by and look at it at night. It's incredibly dark in there. Yeah. So it would be very beneficial if we lit this thing up. I'm of the opinion for this kind of money that we could probably light it up and build the fence.
And I'm sure we can. I've also discussed with our Parks and Trees staff that we do the demolition in-house, and we would see a savings there with this bid. So we're going to pivot and add that as an addendum for the city to do an addendum, or excuse me, the city to do the demolition of the existing fence.
So I would like us to, move in a way, because this Mayor Pittman's absolutely 100% correct. Especially the Montgomery side is hideous, and then the other 2 sides are actually cycle fence up on 3rd and Bird, but it does it no justice. I went out there with a tape measure as well, and I measured up 5 feet, and I was imagining driving by and looking at a 5-foot fence and how that might impede our vision into and take away from it. So I might want to explore actually lowering that a little bit. Perhaps, I know there was great discussion with the previous council over that, but you could easily tell that 5 foot is going to be, it's going to impede your vision or your ability to see the building when you're driving by.
Well, and that's why we went with the black fence, so the white building would pop in the background. And also we went with the 5-foot fence because it was a visual deterrent to the average height person to not want to climb something that's basically at eye height. So
sure.
That was really the consensus of that discussion for the 5-foot fence. We discussed 5.5 to really prevent it as a climbing fence, and then we discussed 4.5. As you said, we went round and round.
Yeah, I remember.
Between each committee for the height of that fence, and everybody landed on 5 feet.
And I'll probably lose that fight, honestly, because 5 just makes more sense. But I'm hoping that with the fence and then adequate lighting, and probably as Chief Lagrone gets more well-staffed, probably more of a presence there too as well, that we could at least set my constituents at ease, because they are very concerned. So I'm just concerned with the price. Ultimately, it boils down to that's a huge bill for 1,100 foot of fence.
It is, and I do understand that. And my goal is the same as yours, to have a quality fence that secures the park, lighting to keep it safe in the evening hours and to deter negative activity, and to enhance, more of the landscaping and things throughout the park and the historic gas lamps. This is just a beginning step to more opportunities within that park, but securing it has been the priority so that we can do more of those items and then protect those items once they've been completed. So,
And the last thing I would like to kind of say about this is I think that now this has to be a prevailing wage work.
yes, it does.
And so I think that we could probably, if we put this out to RFP, I would love to encourage some local contractors to bid if they meet the threshold of qualifications for
Yes.
prevailing wage work.
And we do. In the last bid walk, we had 3 local contractors, but they said that the job was too large for them to quit the small jobs that they're doing and focus on this project. I'm hoping since almost a year has passed that we can have more local contractors again bid on this. We also are required to send it out to 4 different contractors exchanges, and we put it on public purchase as well. So it gets a wide radius. I think our radius is 100 miles for bids.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
Councilwoman Riggs?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we talked briefly about all of the different agencies that have had a opinion in this fence, but could you delineate which groups you've talked to help determine what the design would be? I know that you said that you came up with the design, but I know that that's based on many of our commissions and groups.
Yes, so
input.
it came from the Park Commission, the Historic Advisory Commission, and City Council. And so I helped with the participation of our construction management team, put all this onto paper, and that's where we got to where we are.
Thank you. And I would say it, to me, totally matches the intention and the discussion and values that were addressed during those various conversations. I do think, I've kept this to myself so far, but Mr. Weber, Councilman Weber, brings up good points about the pricing. That at current, it is different on nearly every side. That the front side the Montgomery Street side could be more decorative, and we might find some cost-saving measures on the other sides. That would be, like, to me, the easiest way to reduce expenses. But
And I'll
just a
speak with
thought.
our construction managers about other ways that we can try to find cost-saving options for this project. We were not anticipating originally for the highest bid to come in at $566,000. That was shocking.
Any of us were.
Yeah, and their explanation was that materials are high, labor is high, which we all know. Again, with inflation and everything else that we're dealing with, I do not wish it to go over the $500,000 mark. The $627,000 was just a safe buffer should any unforeseens come up. But ideally, I would like to keep it below the $500,000 mark. We're fencing a full city block. It's a historic treasure to our community, but it is a heavy dollar amount.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple comments before I let Councilman Weber go. This is obviously just a rendering. It's not an engineer drawing because we're already discrepancy in the numbers, so that's going to wiggle a little bit.
This was
potentially.
done.
The
by-
rendering
The
is
rendering
done?
was completed by Melton Design Group.
Okay, so
and
then
it is to scale.
It is to scale then. Okay, because that was a little bit of a confusion then on that part, at least where I sit. And then just as again, we're kind of showing our hand when we're talking about the maximum dollar piece, when it comes to the RFP and then bids coming in. To that, I think we should add in that when we get to the motion piece, perhaps adding the lighting and the lamps and all these other elements into the motion, just so that we give clear direction to staff. Additionally, I think that you can have a hybrid, because this is a standard 60-inch, AKA 5-foot fence, and so you can purchase the panels commercially that are heavy duty. That would be an inordinate savings, from my view, just being formerly in construction myself. So I think that there is a lot of potential for savings. Obviously the entry points, the signage, there's a lot of custom work here as well. But I think if we could encourage those RFPs, have a competitive process, add all those additional elements, we still might, at the end of the day, end up with a a pretty good-sized bill. But I think I'd like to ensure that we're going to achieve all of these expressed objectives, because some have been verbal and not in writing here. And then also, I think within the context of that RFP, that hybrid bidding would be acceptable as long as the quality of construction, is the same as custom. And I think that that can be achieved at the end of the day. So, and especially just looking at this rendering, I mean, that's pretty standard 60-inch commercial, I call it pool fencing. But anyway, Councilman Weber.
No, I'm going to go ahead and Councilman Thompson.
Okay, Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, it isn't, from my understanding, we usually don't approve the amount before we put out to RFP, right?
Well, it's an amount that's been budgeted. It doesn't mean that that's the amount we're going to go to. That's just the cap.
Right, but we don't usually do that, right? We usually we have a project, we put it out to bid.
We've done it both ways.
Yeah, typically you'll have like an estimate of what it's going to cost. Sometimes they call it an engineer's estimate if you have an engineer who's looking at plans. In this instance, you sort of have an estimate of what it's going to cost based on some of the proposals that they've seen on some variations of it. But you're right. Typically, you don't have when you go out to RFP, you don't have a number attached.
Yeah, because it's definitely going to, like you said, tip our hat and whatnot.
Well, there is an engineer's estimate that is provided in each RFP.
Gotcha. And then the second, just the cost. We just had about 250 linear foot of commercial fence, not too far off of the design that we have here. So it's about a little less than a quarter of what we have going here, and our cost was around 10,000. That's installed.
Not prevailing wage.
Not prevailing wage, but that's a lot of prevailing wage there.
Absolutely.
Double it.
And I understand, and I agree that the cost is very high, what was previously proposed, and that's where I'm hoping too that cost will come down with the next round of bids.
Councilman Weber.
Thank you. Another observation, but I want to, the post at the quarters that were of quite a debate with I forget who the young man that wanted them. Was it Danny Ballard?
Danny Ballard.
Yeah. I was looking at those posts today. They are hammered. Most of them are like rotten. He can have them by all means because the previous council, I believe, said he could. They're not.
To be provided to the Eman home.
Yeah.
To the Eman Museum.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're not in good shape. Most of them are like really bad.
I believe that they will discover that upon receiving them.
Yeah, yeah, and I just wanted to kind of echo what Vice Mayor Smith and Mayor Pittman were talking about with the panels. I think that is a really good idea. That if we could look at like an offsite, because you know how easy I'm not really a welder, but anybody that knows about welding, you set up a jig, you just repeat the process over and over and over again, and then that way, if a tree runs in or falls on it, or a car runs into it, we have these panels are ready and available to fix. But I think we could really reduce the cost of this by just doing our due diligence and looking for those providers that could build those things for us, and then do a really, really good job on Montgomery with the more ornate stuff that needs to be done. So I don't know. I'm just strong. I strongly suspect we could really do our work. Do we have to put a budget on this? Do we have to put like a number on it? Because
For
I would
our
rather.
RFPs, we have to put an engineer's estimate within the
Okay.
RFP.
Because I also agree with Vice Mayor Smith about tipping our hand. I don't want the contractors to be like, well, look what they set aside.
With some of our roadway projects, we've put in an engineer's estimate, and we've received bids under the engineer's estimate, but we've also received bids over the engineer's estimate. It really depends on that contractor, what their overhead is, what their staffing is. It depends on what their ability is to perform that project.
And did you? And you already said this, but please refresh my memory. Did you say you were looking into whether or not Public Works can do the demo?
Yes, they have already agreed to do the demo.
Okay, because
So we're going to be removing that component from the proposal, which will bring the cost down.
Okay, all right. And so when we put this out for our RFP, now correct me, but we're gonna also add in the element of lighting, not necessarily because you mentioned the gas lamps, but I think the gas lamps are probably going to be a whole nother, because I can imagine what that's going to take to fix those. But other lighting though, like to light the trees up, light the building up, all that, motion. Are we going to also include that now? Is that what we're?
That's
proposing?
what I was suggesting.
Yeah. Okay.
As part of this motion. Yeah.
I think I think if we're going to go all in, let's do it at once.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just of that opinion.
And what we can do is have the $627,000 be the cap, including lighting.
Yeah. Councilwoman Johnstone.
Thank you. My question would be, have we already had, you said some bids come in for this project?
That was
correct?
last year, yes.
Okay, so I know the times have changed and pricing has gone up on raw materials and such, but what would it be to possibly fly for with one of the mid-range bids so that we don't tip our hand when we are doing the RFP and see what kind of costing we can get? Although that my thought on this was prior to adding in all of the lighting and the improvements and such that we were talking about. So my thought process was going with one of the mid-range as far as when we go with the RFP and see what kind of bids we can get, and then obviously if we can't bring any bids in meeting that cap, then maybe bring it back to council and raise that. But I think now we're all a big consensus.
If we put a cap on it, we could just bring it back to council requesting to approve this bid with an adjustment to accommodate the higher amount.
You can certainly limit the amount right now, and ultimately, if all the bids come back higher, then we'd have to come back and request an adjustment, and that might be a way to obviously drive the cost or attempt to drive the cost down.
I mean, $627,000 is a lot of money for a fence.
And again, that was just the $177,000 plus the $450,000 for a buffer for unforeseens. I don't anticipate the bid to come in at $627,000. The last high bid was $566,000. But with these projects, inevitably, there's always unforeseens that come into play.
Right, but the RFPs are going to see that.
Oh, the
price,
engineer's
right?
estimate will not be $627,000. Our last engineer's estimate was $300,000.
Okay, that was my concern. Like, of course, they're going to say it's $627,000.
Yeah,
I would too.
Yeah.
So Don, just real quick, is there anything within the drawings here, the engineered specs, that would preclude a hybrid concept? Where then if I'm a contractor and I'm making this bid, then I'm thinking I can beat the next guy because, all of the lineal, straightaways can be used, you can utilize prefab. So is there anything in here that would preclude a bid like that?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
So for this design, it could be custom or prefabricated.
Yeah. Well, I think it would, just looking at this, again, with my background, I would think that it'd probably have to be a hybrid. Some of it you could do with, a prefab material, and then the balance of it would have to be custom work.
Right, like the 8-inch posts at the gates, those would probably be more custom tube steel. But for the 4-inch posts at the panels, those will likely be a standard item.
Okay. Councilwoman Goodson?
Mayor Pittman is in the queue.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, you had your hand raised. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I did not see that.
Real quick. That's fine. Thank you. A brief comment, and I feel the need to make that comment because I know we're all in sticker shock here, which I agree. But try and price out a 4-foot chain link fence, and it'd be in further sticker shock lately. One of the things I wanted to mention is the Manassian's family had donated over almost $40,000 just for landscaping along the front edge. And that was a very generous donation. Plus the Tandy family built the rotunda and re-roofed it and then re-roofed the other things. So we've had a lot of community support here over the years from downtown folks. So I just wanted to mention that at this point, that we're at a park that has been hugely supported by so many members. Maybe it helps to buffer the sticker shock a little bit. And I really like the idea of the up tree lighting. I hadn't heard that topic before, but that's really a great idea, because as a tree city, that would be a fantastic part of the experience of just simply driving by the park and looking at things. And I appreciate I've been involved in the park, and the planning commission discussions have been extensive. So I'm glad we're at the kind of hopefully end of the road and getting this thing done and standardize it throughout the city. So I appreciate the comments and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did you have any comments, Councilwoman Goodson? Okay, thank you. All right. Well, is there anyone that would like to make a motion? And just again, to remind that not in here, but to include perhaps the lighting.
I motion that we approve a budget adjustment up to $627,000 for fencing and lighting improvements all around the lot home, and direct staff to open bids for such projects.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, vote.
Mayor Pittman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
All right, we're on to item 15, which is council goals, priorities, and a workshop format.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Pittman, Vice Mayor, and council members. It was brought to staff's attention a number of months ago to eventually bring it together, bring forward the opportunity to discuss and brainstorm on goals and priorities going forward for the city of Oroville. And the staff have been working. We've identified a facility for next Tuesday, the 28th, to have that on a non-traditional Tuesday for the council. And we've discussed a typical format, but certainly we want to get consensus and direction from the council on this. And we'd recommend going forward with a process where all the department heads kick off the discussion and talk about some of the accomplishments that they've seen. Not extensive accomplishments, but at least a broad overview of some of the accomplishments they had this fiscal year, which then likely they will certainly transition to, okay, we've had our accomplishments. What are some of the challenges that we've seen? What are some of the challenges that we see going forward? Which I always like to think those as opportunities, and it potentially could lead to goals and or priorities. So if each of the department heads did a short presentation on some of those topics, followed up by community public input from anyone from the public, community partners, and then wrapping the discussion up with an opportunity for anyone in the room that partakes in the process to propose their goals and priorities as well, before then the council ultimately deliberates on the topics and identifies those. So that would be one format, and certainly wanted to see what if the council had any other options they'd like to consider.
Okay, yeah, before we get to council questions, do we have any public comments, Madam Clerk, on this item?
Mr. Vice Mayor, we do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay, council? So essentially what we're discussing here is then to have this workshop, staff will present, and this is to be in the future scheduled by
it would be next
clerk, so.
next Tuesday. We've secured a location, Table Mountain Golf Course, the conference room there from 11 to 2. It'd be kind of we'd have a working lunch. Obviously, it's challenging to meet everyone's schedule. But that was a 3-hour window that worked for everybody, and we feel, in addition to getting this done, because I know it has been discussed for a number of months, this would be a great opportunity to establish priorities as staff start to kick off the budget process as well. Because obviously the priorities could dovetail very, very nicely into the budget process.
Okay. So did you say an actual fixed date? Did you suggest?
Yes.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Next
Tuesday.
So, yeah, that's.
During
Is there
28.
any scheduling
11
issues?
to
11 to 2.
11 to 2.
Will there be lunch?
There will be.
lunch.
It'll be a working lunch. But that was the time and date that worked for everyone.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Councilwoman Riggs?
Thank you. My question was, one of the recommendations was providing a platform for stakeholders to vote on their priorities and goals. And I just worry about how we would fairly determine who a stakeholder is. And using the term vote makes it feel like that's how we'll go. It might create some confusion, whereas maybe a roundtable discussion, several roundtable discussions might be more effective than a vote type scenario. That's just my thought and concern.
Yeah, one idea from a voting perspective, I think it possibly has been used here previously, is once some of the priorities are established, could put them up around the room, and then folks could go around and do some voting mechanisms that way. That would be one avenue I know has been, in speaking with the mayor, has been discussed and utilized previously, just as a consideration.
Thank you.
Mayor Delmeyer did that.
Okay.
Councilman Weber?
Yes, thank you. How long would how much time would we give the public to speak? What would be the proposal? Because, we have a 3-minute time limit here, so, we'd have to have some boundaries or some, rules to engage. Otherwise, we may have, just endless amounts of time being spent on any one subject. So I would propose that we would do a time limit. We could come up with a time limit, much like we do here. I would propose that we do a meeting just like we do here, and I would actually propose that we don't do it in 3 hours. We would do it 2 hours, and I would also like to have public hearing and input. But I agree with Councilmember Riggs that I think that giving if we allowed voting to happen, then that would feel like there was going to be action taken on any given thing. And I think that input is great. I think we should follow input if it's in line with what the rest of the council desires to do, and if it's in line for the greater good of Oroville as a whole. But I think that voting would be a terrible idea. So,
all right, Mr. Mayor, you're up. Pittman?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And appreciate the comments. City Administrator Ring pretty well described the process. It's more of a workshop format. And as Councilman Goodson said, we did this once before out at the golf course. And essentially you end up with large Post-its around the room with the topics that are generated from the department head intelligence that we get. And then you want the public to weigh in because it is a public meeting. One of the suggestions might be to offer a number of, say, half a dozen of these round stickies. And at a certain point in time, when we have them all on the wall, offer who's ever attending their opportunity to take each one of their stickies and put it on the topic. And essentially, they're not really voting, but they put their, they could put one button for each one, or they could put 6 buttons on the same topic. And that gives them the opportunity to weigh in on it. I agree with you, Councilman Weber. We can't really have a perspective vote. That just doesn't work. But or if they just simply want to mark on the large Post-its what their feelings were by a number and something like that, just so that we get a weigh in on it. And yes, we're the ultimate decider. But having the public walking away feeling like their input was received and it was registered, I think is the more important thing. And I don't care how we do it, but the discussion is a good idea. And it creates at least if there's 10 topics, we'll have 10 topics, and let everyone weigh in on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that perhaps we could, in that context, have an opportunity. We're hearing from staff, and then very much like there are times when we give direction. And then we could perhaps vote on giving direction back to staff, then to have a more formalized proposal to council for something that's to actually vote on to begin that process. But here we're kind of, it's the big wide end of a funnel. We're hearing from the constituents, we're hearing from the staff, we're processing that, and then I think we could boil that down to give a direction. And then you're going to vote on those items into the future as to what we ultimately prioritize. I think that would be the type of process I think that would work well. And I think we've done something similar to that in the past as well. But yeah, it would be very difficult on the fly to have conclusive decisions and given direction on that in that fashion. Councilwoman Riggs.
I think that we and I spurred this. I apologize. Are arguing about syntax, that if we simply change the words from vote to gave public and stakeholders and council members the opportunity to visually display their support for the various priorities, that might help us wrap our heads around this better. Because even for me, vote was like, ooh, but to visually display their their preferred priorities would be helpful.
Okay.
I like how literal we're being tonight, though. It's nice.
So this would be next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
Table Mountain Golf Course.
Yeah, it would start at 11, and certainly it doesn't have to go 3 hours. It obviously will go. We have the room for a finite period in time, but ultimately the department head conversations will probably take maybe an hour. I would hope for. That's what we're kind of targeting, about 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes per department head. And again, not getting the details here, just talk high level successes, but then also some challenges that they see. And again, ideally, then hopefully those will lead to opportunities, and which then kind of lead to goals and priorities. So. And ultimately, I agree with what everyone is saying here. The community input is great for you all as representatives to see, but ultimately, it's your council's decision on what the priorities, what they are.
Okay. I think we've
Sounds good.
adequately
Thank
discussed
you.
that. So we need a motion then to go ahead and schedule this workshop.
We don't actually.
Actually, the motion is just to provide staff direction on the
Oh, just
format.
right. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, so I think everything. I
So
think
I think we got the direction.
everything.
Yep. All right. You know what we're looking for. Okay. All right. Moving on then to item 16, and this, as I understand it, will require an appointment by our mayor, Mayor Pittman, and I think he's expressed that he wants to hear from the council to see if there's perhaps some of us that would have an interest in the library, and so this would be one representative and then one person that would be an
alternate.
An alternate. Thank you. So I guess, council, do you have any of you have any expressed interest in being on an ad hoc committee with the county and dealing with this library issue? And I don't know if there's any context here that Mr. Ring that you can provide as far as what they're looking for.
You bet. Yeah, bet. So back in December of this of 22, the Board of Supervisors implemented a compensation study at the county level, and given the increase in compensation, salary, and benefits that they implemented, they had to make reductions in all the department budgets. Obviously, it was a tough decision, but every single department had seen reductions, and the library was no different. So, for the city of Oroville, now we're thinking, I think the hours went from 39 hours a week to 29 hours a week for the Oroville library. So every single library, all 6 of them, were impacted a little bit differently. And we had a lot of discussions, the county did at the time, about how do you fund library services ongoing, and how are they structured? And ultimately, the Board of Supervisors decided that there's a lot of stakeholders here. The library branches are in 6 different communities, and we should get input from everybody before making a decision with regards to how they structure library services and how they're funded going forward. So that drove the decision by the Board of Supervisors to form a committee and request, at least put out an olive branch to each jurisdiction and say, do you want to have someone sit on that committee?
Okay, thank you. And before we get to council discussions on this, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay, council? Councilwoman Riggs?
Thank you. Do we have indication on how frequently this committee will meet or when?
Not yet. I can certainly gather more information, and it's not a committee. Again, it's an ad hoc. It's for a short-term duration. It's not it's obviously there's a targeted issue they're trying to address here. So I don't envision this in being a long-term type of a committee.
My definition of short-term is far
Could be
different than the
different.
government's definition of short-term.
Understand.
I am a frequent library attendee. I use the library all the time. And I'm willing to and interested in serving, depending on the frequency of meetings and when those meetings are. Yeah. And assuming nobody else wants to.
And I'll be your alternate. I'll do that. So, Mr. Mayor?
I appreciate the willingness to serve, and I see those 2 as appointments, and I certainly concur.
Okay.
So again, as the de facto parliamentarian, given the mayor has made a recommendation, it does require a confirmation by the council with a motion and a second and a vote.
Okay.
So we're looking for one alternate?
One member,
Correct.
participating member, one alternate.
Okay, so we're approving
Right.
Yeah, what he just,
I make a motion that we approve the mayor's recommendation or appointment.
do we have a second?
Second.
Vote?
Mayor Pittman, how do you vote?
Yes?
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, at this time on item 17, I need to recuse myself. Mr. Mayor Pittman, you'll take it from here on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Item number 17 is the council will consider authorization for the purchase of tickets for the 2023 Oroville Chamber of Commerce Annual Dinner to be held on April 6, 2023. And we would have a choice of 1 or 2 sponsor tables at that dinner. What's the privilege of the council?
I guess you can't see the request to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, please. Take care of the request to speak if there is any.
Okay, yeah, I'm in, and then Mr. Weber is. But it's great to support this. Always a great event, and I would recommend that we grab 2 tables.
Do we know how many seats are at each table?
Yes, there's 8.
It's 8.
Usually an 8 top.
Yeah, 8.
Okay, well, I would like to see us do 2 tables then.
Was there any public comment on this?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay.
I have a question, if I may.
I appreciate. Go ahead.
So is this allotment, is it only for council members, or is there any additional for potential staff, like our directors, our city administrators, our police, chief, our code enforcement director? Is there any, because this is only 2 tables, this would only cover council and their spouses.
Yes, my understanding previously, obviously the council members and spouses were always a priority, and if there were seats left over, that other staff could attend.
Is there interest from staff to go?
I think that's pretty much a standard because it affects everybody's schedule. Some can go, some cannot go. And I think by having 2 tables, we'll have the seats. And as Mr. Ring mentioned, council priority, and then whatever we can fill in behind. I certainly support the purchase of 2 tables.
$575.
$575 a table, yeah.
I hear someone speaking in the background.
My apologies, Mayor Pittman. It was me, Councilman Weber. I was asking how much the tables cost per table. So would it be out of line to suggest that if there was enough staff that wanted to go, that we purchase 3 tables? I mean,
I would like that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I've gone, and last year we had 2 tables, and there were 2 or 3 seats that were open.
Yeah, and if I could add the recent purchase of the Rotary Roundup tickets, 2 tables would have been plenty.
Right.
Okay.
So
I just want to make sure that our
I would not
directors could go.
advocate for 3.
I'll be coaching. I have a couple baseball games that night, so coaching.
Everyone has a different schedule.
I can certainly poll the department head group if the council would desire and see, and if you want to give direction 2 to 3, depending on what the participation looks like.
well,
I think that's probably.
forgive me, Mayor Pittman, go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Well, then I move we buy 2 tables, and then if we see we need later, I'm sure there will be opportunity, but.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
The motion seconded. Any question on the vote? Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pittman, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 recused.
Can you bring him back in? Thank you all.
Okay. Moving on to item 18.
Two tables.
The Oroville rebranding ad hoc committee creation and mayoral appointments to the committee.
Yeah, so this came before the Vice Mayor Smith and Councilmember Weber requested that the council consider creating an ad hoc committee to work closely with North Star Place Branding and Marketing as they're moving forward on the rebranding process. And I know the mayor has recommended 2 appointments to this. Vice Mayor, I apologize. The recommendations were Councilmember Riggs and Vice Mayor Smith.
Before we get into any comments from the council, are there any green cards, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I do not have any public speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any comments from the council? Councilwoman Riggs.
I just love this project, and I appreciate all the work that staff has done to help usher this project along with North Star. So that's all.
Yeah, and I just might add that I know a lot of our stakeholders, partners in the community, whether it's the Downtown Business Association, Feather River Parks District, there's a lot of folks, even the schools, are really kind of watching to see what we come up with. And that will impact other agencies and how they market and represent Oroville. So, yeah, I'm really excited about the process. And I appreciate Mayor Pittman's appointment that we can kind of enjoy this as we're getting near the end, hopefully the finish line in this process. But, you know, this is bigger than any one of us. It's, you know, it really involves so much of our city and so many stakeholders. And so we just, you know, we want to see this across the finish line and get on with building Oroville and making it great. So appreciate that, Mayor Pittman, for that appointment. Councilwoman Riggs.
Well, this is the planning finish line. The implementation finish line will be never ending.
Well, this is true. It's yeah, you know, as they say, you have to continue in marketing. You have to continue to reinvent yourself, and it's a process that's as long as we're breathing, it's always going to be a process, certainly.
And I think that in the past, we figure we've done this, and then now it's done. And I think that it's always important for us to bring back that. Implementation is a long-term plan.
Absolutely. A good point. Thank you. Well, with that said, we have a motion to, yes.
Quick comment,
Mayor Pittman.
One of the things that's a little unique here is we're actually hired a contractor to produce a product. So, and they asked us to limit the amount of people on their board as to eight positions, so that we now fill 8 positions. And an ad hoc committee really isn't going to bring the end result because the contractor is going to be bringing the end result. And the end result still comes to us for final determination and discussion decision. So that was the sense that we're dealing with. And I appreciate everyone's willingness to serve on an ad hoc committee. But because we're working with a contractor, it's really doesn't fit the mold of an ad hoc committee where the ad hoc committee would make a sub-report to the council and then, you know, weigh in on that consideration. That's just a procedural issue. And that's, I appreciate the one to serve, but I think that's why we're trying to do it and follow the contractor's guidelines here. So thank you all.
Yeah, and I appreciate that clarification. Mm-hmm. Any other comments? So do we have a motion to endorse the mayor's appointments?
Yeah, I make a motion that we do.
A second?
Oh. Second.
Adopt.
Make a motion that we do.
And a second, okay. Do we have a vote?
Mayor Pittman, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, at this time, we reserved another time for a public communication hearing of non-agenda items. I don't know if we have anyone else that.
Mr.
Madam
Vice
Clerk?
Mayor, I do not have anyone for public communication. When you get down to future business, I do have someone.
Okay, moving on to reports and discussions, correspondence, council announcements and reports. Councilwoman Johnstone.
Thank you. A couple things. So for future agenda items, I know all the council members did receive the proposal for the pool at the convention center, and I would like to have that agendized for a future date to discuss. I think that that is something that the community needs, especially since the YMCA just shut down the other one. It would also be beneficial for the high schools as well as the downtown community and the community as a whole. So I would like to see that added. at some point.
I think you have an agreement from the mayor on that. I see him nodding his head.
Okay.
Did you have you still have your hand raised there, Mr. Mayor? Did he want to comment?
He looks frozen.
He's frozen, yeah.
And then,
Okay, he is. All right, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry, one other thing, if
Yes.
I may. I also wanted to, are we on to future?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. These are announcements and reports.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's what, we weren't on agenda items, but we kind of jumped.
I apologize.
Yeah,
That was
jumped
a
ahead a
time.
little bit.
Okay.
No worries.
in the
Okay,
pool.
Councilwoman Riggs.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I just an announcement from the Downtown Business Association that the first Friday in April is April 7th, and that is the Downtown Spring Fling. That's a free event where businesses will be open late. And will include a visit from the Easter Bunny and some children's activities as well. So I encourage you guys to attend that.
Super. Any other announcements?
I do have an announcement.
Okay, Councilwoman Johnstone. All right.
I did want to announce that the Oroville Airport is having a fly-in day July 1st. There will be wonderful things happening. There's going to be hosted by Cars and Coffees. There will be lowriders, custom cars, aircrafts, food, vintage trailers. It's something that I have attended a few years in a row, and I just wanted to invite the community. It's a really, really fun event, and it will really help publicize the airport.
Super.
So you're all invited.
What was the time of that event?
It's July 3rd from July 1st, free admission from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's a really, really fun event for families.
And just as a follow up on that, related to the airport, number one, I'll bring back. I'm gonna draft a a staff report authorizing the city to co-sponsor the event so they can use the city seal. That's one of the requirements is you have to formally approve an event for them to use the city seal. And on top of that, there will be an additional airport item related to displaying of vintage aircraft during the year for like a static display. There are some benefits to the individuals that do that, and it'll be a combined item, but I'll bring that at the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Riggs, were you still? No, you know. Okay, I'm just clearing the board here. So I do want to report out. I was thinking about working together in conjunction with other organizations. The city co-sponsored also the Arbor Days Festival at the Convention Center this past weekend, and we had special guests Sparky, and we also had Smokey the Bear. In person, that was actually there. So it was just a great day from 10 to 4. We had a lot of various vendors and presentations. It was just a great day celebrating. Again, I think this is our 43rd year as the City Tree USA. And there was a proclamation read by the mayor. And it was just overall a great day. So, okay, future agenda items. We got the one already taken care of. Anything else? Councilwoman Goodson.
Yes, I just received a message from Mayor Pittman. He has stated that he is experiencing technical issues and let everyone know that he appreciates and thanks all for attending.
Right, thank you. Councilwoman Weber. Councilwoman. What a faux pas that was. Woo! Okay. Councilman Weber.
That takes care of my.
You took that.
Have a little levity there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He took it well.
Right on the chin. Yeah. I wanted to take advantage of a moment to acknowledge that Carolyn Fairbanks was in the audience earlier, and Carolyn has been putting up a massively valiant fight in her health struggles. And to see her here, I wish I would have acknowledged her at the beginning. I thought about asking you, Vice Mayor Smith, if I could, and I didn't. And then she must have had to leave. And I just wanted to give her a shout out, essentially, just saying, hey, good job. You're fighting the good fight. Keep on fighting, and we're all pulling for you in your efforts. I wanted to mention this isn't a future agenda item, but I was slow on the uptake, so I apologize. So I'm back on, but I wanted to mention that the Oroville Rescue Mission is also putting on a egg hunt and resource fair on Saturday, April the 8th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The Oroville Rescue Mission in association with the Butte County Child Abuse Prevention and the Oroville Rescue Mission Resource Center. I'm probably massacring this because my lovely bride is involved in all that, so she would be the one that would be able to tell us a lot more about it. But this is going to be a great event for our community. And so I want to plug that. And also, I would like to, now future agenda items, I would like to, and forgive me, Vice Mayor Smith, because I'm kind of jumping out there. You and I have been talking about this, but I'm going to throw it out there that the city of Citrus Heights, are you comfortable with me talking about it? Okay, because I didn't want to.
It's your platform.
All right, thank you.
Go.
The city of Citrus Heights recently approved a $85,000 expenditure for the one-time COVID money to really put on a magnificent 4th of July fireworks display. And that was brought to Vice Mayor Smith's attention by some people, and we were having a discussion about it. And I would love to have that on future agenda to see if it would be this council's desire to do the same thing and put on a really magnificent fireworks display for our city. Kind of like a coming out of COVID party almost, because we just were declared the emergency over and all that. And so I think that would be a lot of fun to do that. Not necessarily 85,000. That their display is going to be unbelievable, but just a future agenda item. I'd like to see something like that go on. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Thompson.
I'm totally 85, 100,000. I mean, let's do it. My where I was born in Burley, Idaho, so a small little town in Idaho. And I tell you what, their fireworks that they put on, they're actually firework display where they launch the fireworks is literally in town. I'm not sure if there's liabilities of why we can't do that. Just launching it right, just block off some roads and just launch it right from downtown Oroville. I mean, that would be great for business and whatnot. I mean, people are sitting around downtown. It is an event, and I can guarantee you they probably spend more than 85,000. And this is a tiny little podunk town in rural. I mean, it was better than any firework display I've seen in all of California. It was epic, and I was like right below it. So anyway, I think we can do that.
To your point, though, I've often wondered, why can't we just shoot them out of Harrison Stadium?
Seriously,
like just
why not? We could sit there and you can sit in the stands. I don't know. Does anybody know why we can't do that?
I would ask Cal Fire.
Yeah. High school.
Yeah, we need to.
Let's if we can, I say we do it at Harrison Stadium. Let's be awesome. But anyway, that's a different discussion. I appreciate the motion and the confirmation from this council to have an ad hoc committee for the design for our rebranding Oroville and whatnot. I actually would like that to be extended past the logo and into, because there's a lot of things that are happening in Oroville, and I think Dawn, you are really, I think highly of your design. There's a lot of stuff that's like top shelf.
Thank you.
That said, I do think that because some of the departments we've had, especially this department, is kind of a newer thing, that I would like to have more input from this council in many of the things that are being designed. And I know that that's a little bit cumbersome to move things forward and then have council input. But if there's a design review committee that is just beyond, that goes beyond just the rebranding of Oroville, I mean, there's the remodel that's happening here, remodeling that's happening with the Civic Auditorium. There's remodeling happening everywhere. And the perspective that I have from the outside is that not to talk directly to Don, but it just seems like there's just kind of Don's doing it.
I think it's a wonderful idea to have an ad hoc committee. I would absolutely welcome that. As you said, I've designed a lot of these projects, but there's a lot of apprehension with putting out a huge building design and hoping that the community likes it. So I would absolutely love the conversation and buy-in from an ad hoc committee
Great.
of council members.
So if we could, I think we could give me a second on that, but, because there's some, I know that it's, some of it is our, just how it's set up. But, there's just been a few decisions. I think when I text you about the question, just kind of some of the bummers that happens with lack of oversight and then decisions that get made. You're kind of like, oh, I wish I had, or we had to input on that. So I think this might curtail future things. And yeah, absolutely, you at least have a portion of the council that will be bringing this to the table as opposed to just Don. That's one thing. I'm not sure if there's a second on that one.
I'll second.
The second thing that I would love is, I don't know how much, I know that the city council used to financially give to the Chamber of Commerce on a regular basis, and then when things got tough, we chopped that. Do you guys know, do we still give to, do we reinstate that?
No, we did not, but I think it was around 30,000, and
30
then
or
it got
40,
reduced down to 10.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was
it
way
stopped.
back then. So I would like to make a motion to put back on the agenda that the city of Oroville gives to the Chamber of Commerce because it's doing a lot with our city, and I think it's important for the city to show support and financially help. And I have had zero conversations with this guy over here about that, so he didn't even know I was going to make that motion.
Yeah, and with all due respect, I would really appreciate that, but as long as I'm on this dais, that's anathema, unfortunately.
I see.
Yes, so, but it's FPPC rules.
So-
Yeah, and I know that our attorney can weigh in on and give greater clarity to that, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, it is, I'll use a different term. I'll use the term thermonuclear. As long as the vice mayor is in both of the roles, sort of with 1 foot in each department or 1 foot on each side of the fence, it'd be very difficult to make that happen without some serious scrutiny and possibly elimination from office by the FPPC.
So then let me twist that a little bit to curtail, and maybe you can answer this if this would be a loophole. So
we lawyers live in loopholes, man.
Instead of giving specifically to the Chamber of Commerce, could we put a fund aside for projects in relationship to things that are a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce? So it doesn't go specifically to staffing or to,
Salaries.
Salaries, but it is specifically incentives, projects that could be something that the Chamber could potentially tap into to help with certain things that are going on.
The short answer is yes, it can be done. And I will say the devil is in the details. We would need to make sure that it is carefully crafted. If the chamber has authority to direct the funds, then they might as well be their own funds. And
then it could be something that would have to come back to us for approval. And
well,
blah, blah, blah.
It can be something where where they, again, I'm just thinking broadly here in general terms, just on the spot. If they were to have some priorities and the city council were to say, well, we would like to fund some of those priorities, you pick the priorities, not them. The more closely connected
control
that they have to the control, the more problematic it is. The more separation there is, the better.
Let's do that. And the second thing is, or on top of that, is because we already are in contract with the Chamber of Commerce to facilitate, like, the Salmon Festival. Is that correct, or that? Is it,
Yes,
we have provided event coordination, but we just step in and do that. We don't. It's
But
not
that's
like
funded by the
working with the
SBF,
city in
not the
that
city.
context.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
SBF. Okay.
Yeah, and it's
I was on
it's
that
SBF.
committee, so
Yes.
confusion of where I was sitting. So yeah, if we could, I would like that to happen.
Let's rather than put that on a specific future agenda item, let's talk details before we do that, so that we can kind of work on that together, you and I, and and the city administrator. Let's talk specific details as to how we get that done and how to make it, work.
You guys can do that. Just bring it to us.
But I want to make sure that it's something that you would
Money,
like to
helping,
see.
incentive, a project. That's what I want. Is funds to help with things that would help the quality of lifestyle for the citizens of Oroville. That would also help with commerce, business. Whether it be downtown or in Southside or wherever it might be. That.
Okay.
Things that would help for the improvement of the general, welfare of our community. Yeah. And sure, and if it's not specifically with the Chamber of Commerce, they could basically bid on it with whomever. I don't care, just as long as there's funds given towards the quality of lifestyle.
We'll work on something.
Great.
Yeah, and not to get outside on the weeds on this, but we do have the Oroville Economic Alliance.
Yes.
And there's no salaries that are attached to that, so that's maybe. But anyway.
Might be the vehicle.
Maybe. That's a big gray area. Okay, moving right along to administrative reports.
Oh, Mr. Vice Mayor, we did have one public speaker on this item.
Oh, okay.
Bill Spear.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council, I've been trying to get the oak tree ordinance back on the agenda for over a year now. It's been issues and problems with it, admittedly by staff. And for the citizens of Oroville, I think it needs to be a fair ordinance. And I'd also like the tree ordinance to be also brought back up and discussed, especially with fire season. And I was talking about it last year for fire season, and it came and gone and went, and then we just had these big windstorms blow through and trees blowing over all over. And just for the responsible managing party of their properties to be able to manage their property without city oversight, I think it'd be beneficial for everyone. Also, I think that I would like to see revisiting the stipend that the city council gets. It's been a long time. It's been the same amount. You guys do a lot of work and put a lot of long hours in, and a lot of different committees. And with inflation and everything else is raised, and what you guys get for a stipend has been the same for as long as I know. And I just think we just gave raises to the staff and bringing everything up, which we should. But I think you should put it on the agenda and discuss raising the stipend on what you guys get to at least compensate for inflation and cost of living, at least back to when it was first originally put in for that, how much ever it was from then to now. I think would be fair and not unreasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Goodson?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. That comment, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in the event that was agendized and voted on for an increase, that it would not affect the council this year. It has to affect future council members.
Yes, that is correct. So in the advent of many years ago, the city of Bell, where they voted themselves significant raises to the tune of 6 figures.
Nice.
Well, yes, some of them are wearing metal bracelets right now, so
yeah.
I don't know how nice that is.
Thanks, but no thanks. Yeah.
No, in the advent of that, there was the legislature did put in a restriction on that, so that you can increase your salaries or stipends, although in this instance the salary is set by the charter, stipend is not. And so you can increase your stipend. In this instance, you can't touch your own, what is it called, salary, the per meeting fee, because that's set by, that's set by the charter. But you can adjust your stipend. It would come into place for those council members who either run for re-election or run for election at the next election. It would come in a staggered manner. They would then be entitled to it, and then 2 years after that, those remaining council members would then be entitled to it.
That's the catch.
If there is a desire to do that, one suggestion, and I'll just throw this out there, so that it doesn't have to be adjusted in the future, is you can index it to some, either index it to the, cost of living, you index it to some, annual percentage increase, so then it automatically rolls, and then you would experience it because you wouldn't be the ones that would have touched it. It would have been, a previous, or actually this council would have done it. Future councils would be the ones to get the benefit of that. There are pros and cons. I can give you all the policy, and city administrator can give you all the policy reasons why you may or may not want to do that, but those are some of the options for you.
Thank you. I had known that, and so appreciate the explanation.
As far as parliamentary issues, I did skip over this letter of recommendation for Congressman LaMoffa, 11.5. We discussed that.
It was on consent.
It was on consent.
Oh, it was on consent.
It was added. It was added.
Okay, so we're
to
good.
consent.
Okay, so we're
you are
covered.
good.
All right, very good. Thank you. So, no worries.
So it was not.
It's better to be
It
covered.
was totally included.
We're all good. All right. So we don't want to leave any rock unturned. So we've covered that. Very good. So now are we on to administrative reports? I believe so. If we've covered.
I had a question, just if you don't mind. What? Just out of pure curiosity, what is the average stipend for? Do you happen to know?
So it is virtually impossible to tell you an average stipend.
Okay.
Every city is different. Some cities include health benefits, some do not.
Sure.
Those that don't include health benefits typically will pay a larger monthly stipend. I can tell you just from one that I know off the top of my head, City of Roseville, I think it's $600 per month.
Mm-hmm.
They do not. My recollection is they do not do health insurance as well. There are some other boards that I serve on or that I represent that are in the $400 to $500 range. Some of them will do they will index it so much per meeting, and so the more meetings you have, the more
Gotcha.
It is. Some of those are in the $200 per meeting range. I have one that's at $100 per meeting. It just runs across the board. I also have one where there is $0. Now that's an outlier, but it really runs the gamut.
And I got one more question. As far as Pastor Spears asking for that agenda item on the trees, I remember when I wasn't on council, he frequently asked about that. Do we need to make a motion now and second that to get it on?
We already did.
We did?
Yeah.
I thought there was direction to put it on.
Yes. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but
No, there was.
No, but I remember having that and being like, yeah,
Oh, with the previous council or right now?
years
Ago.
at least a year ago.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, it is something that I do remember that the council wanted to bring back. Why don't we?
Specific to the oak tree ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
given that was a previous council, let's go ahead and make it clear. Do you want
Yes.
them to come back?
Yeah. And,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the city needs to also do some consulting and reviewing of other cities, how they handle that. But definitely that needs to be addressed.
And I can add to that. So the staff member that I had assigned to that does not have the time. I have reassigned it to our former assistant planner, Mr. Musler, and he's now a consulting planner for the city of Oroville, and he is working on the oak tree ordinance. He is comparing it to other jurisdictions, and we're also receiving input from the state arborist so that we know that we're within our boundaries for the ordinance moving forward. So that
Okay.
should be coming to this body in the coming months.
And I think it would be, I was just going to say, I think it would be valuable also to hear from our local arborist and P31 and Tree of Life and other, organizations that provide that service to the city.
Once we have it drafted, we will absolutely have a sit-down meeting with them.
Very good. Thank you.
So for the sake of this current council, Mr. Huber, should we make a motion and second it?
I have,
Okay.
I was going to say, I have
Yeah.
Thompson, Weber, and Smith listed as requesting it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're good. So we can move on to administrative reports. So moving from my left to right.
I
Amy?
just wanted to let you all know that I haven't received an official award letter, but I did get notified by our CDBG representative that they are recommending the neighborhood cleanup project that we applied for very many months ago for award. So we'll be bringing that to council soon to accept that grant award.
On a side note, just while you just made that, it'd be great if you, because you get a lot of money for our city with the different grants. It'd be awesome if you gave a presentation of just maybe in the last 5 years how much money that you have brought. Because sometimes you just say things like that. We possibly got, I got another award, and it's like, oh, cool, thanks. Anyway, but it's like there's a lot of money that you've brought into our city. So I would request that you give us a presentation of some of the grants that we have won in the last couple of years.
Well, I have started to prepare for the goals, priorities and goals slideshow, and some of that is included, but it was only the last year, which I can say was 23 million. But if you want me to do 5 years, I'd love to.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay.
That might be a whole special meeting. It's great.
It's
Mr.
nothing
Ray.
specific to report, but just week 4 here, and I just want to thank everybody, all the council members. I've had a lot of good interactions with all of you, and the staff have been fantastic in making me feel welcome and try to, just throw as much information into my head as possible. So it's been a good experience. So thank you all.
Thank you. Yeah, you definitely hit the ground running for sure. Okay, moving over. Mr. Belser?
Yeah, I just want to let you know that 4 of my staff members are enduring the Module 2 Academy course at the California Association of Code Enforcement Officers. And this, I've went through this, and it's not fun. And some people, when they go to training, they think it's fun. This is not fun. They're receiving in-depth training on property maintenance, public nuisances, substandard housing, vehicle abatement, building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical codes, really understanding zoning and land use ordinances, and then the preservation of evidence, abatement warrants, and learning to testify in court. So it's a 40-hour course this week. 2 of the 4 that are down there have already completed the Module 1. It's a lot of work, and it's a step to getting towards Module 3 and actually being a certified code enforcement officer. And then I also let you know that we're pushing through 2 abatement warrants. Not going to give the exact addresses, but one will be in the area of Lincoln and B Street. It's a much-needed abatement warrant on a nuisance property, and then the second one is within close proximity of Oroville High School, literally across the street. And it's a disgusting property that belonged to a owner that has passed away, and people have infiltrated the house and refused to give up ground. So we're going to go in there and take care of business. It's really been something that Oroville High School's had to deal with, and we're going to get that taken care of.
Yeah, I heard in the news that squatting has become a real problem nationwide as of late. So it's
Absolutely.
important to stay on top of that.
And I would just, James is here from the City Works program, and, he knows what it's like. We are constantly boarding up structures, trying to work with property owners and deal with the issues. It's tough.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. And thank you for identifying this man right here, because the whole meeting I've been thinking, where do I know this guy from? And the whole meeting, and as soon as you said it, I'm like, that's the guy that drives around the truck all day. I see everywhere. I see him everywhere, picking up stuff, cleaning up stuff. Yeah, thank you very much for your service, and thank you for your work. Yeah, you're doing a great job.
And some positive news. And James, some positive news is they have agreed for the transfer of the truck. So, yes, get you out of that one and get you into another one.
James, please come to the podium and say a couple things, please, if you don't mind. If it's thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Council. It's rough out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it every day. What's worrying me now is the homeless out there that are suffering in this weather. I drive around every morning and see people freezing in doorways, pouring rain. I just want to cry. I mean, it's terrible. Like Ron says, we work endless hours cleaning up the city. It's I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate
hard.
you and we appreciate, you know, the accomplishments in your own life. And you've been touched by the program, whether it's the Hope Center or the mission, that we have great partners in our community to, you know, step up and try to rescue those that are in that situation. It's tough. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually just Wednesday I saved a dog that I had seen injured on River Bend Trail, and it ran into a bush and it picked it up and it had gotten hit by a car or something. Took it to the SPCA and it's still there. Little
great.
mini
Well,
pin.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Appreciate
Love
it.
you guys.
Thank you. Yes.
And Ron.
And the truck's on the way.
The photos of that dog and him saving the dog are in the last OneDrive message that I sent you guys. It's thank you, James, very much.
Heartwarming.
I appreciate it, buddy.
Super. All right, Ruth.
I just want to apologize for the computer technical malfunction on my staff report. I came in at 3:30 and I tested it. I even had IT helping me, and for some reason Jackie helped. It was all good to go. And then when my staff report came up, so I apologize. It kind of threw me off a little bit. But also, I just want to clarify on the council stipends. There has been an increase within the last 2 years of $100. So it was voted in during the budget process. So it hasn't been stagnant for a very long time, but at least maybe last year or the year before it was increased by 100.
Councilwoman Goodson?
Yes, thank you. It wasn't my call to say anything, but I was aware when because Bill and I talked often about that, and so he had shared with me how that was going to happen. Yeah. So it was put into the budget. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Don?
Yes, going back to the Sutter Buttes flood control presentation, our engineering staff has been working with their staff. They've been exchanging data, and tomorrow we're meeting with them to discuss the partnership agreement to bring forward to council. At the last council meeting, there was the discussion of the flagpole and the Liberty pole and flying larger flags on those. I have Mr. Atterbury looking at this pole in front of City Hall to accommodate a larger flag. Currently, it's a 4-foot by 6-foot flag. And the Liberty pole, I've been researching the history of that, and it's been in that location since before the city of Oroville was incorporated. So we have basically inherited that pole. There's been some fascinating history that goes with it. I won't bore you with it tonight, but I've been enjoying the research. And then again, for the oak tree ordinance that is in progress currently, our consulting planner will bring something forward, but again, we will discuss that with our local tree service providers before we bring that forward to gain their input.
Super. I don't know if
Don,
there's any.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilman Webb.
I would love to know some of that history, maybe not at this level, but because that stuff just fascinates me. But so are you saying that we basically own that pole then?
I more or less, yes.
Okay.
I've searched every council agenda, resolution, you name it, and I can't find where the city officially accepted it or anything. Again, it's been in that location since the late 1800s. So I believe that we have inherited it since we own the property that it sits on, but I'm still going to continue the research on that. I kind of keep diving down rabbit holes with the information.
Okay. I'm with Councilman Thompson. I would love to see a flag out there, and I would love to see at minimum on our major holidays a big, giant, beautiful flag. But I think that we could explore lighting it up from the bottom and hang the flag up there permanently, because that's going to be the problem. Nobody's going to want to take it up and down.
Yeah.
You know. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Councilman Thompson, did you?
Yeah, thank you. If my memory was better, because I was asked, gosh, probably 5 years ago, after I was not long on this council, to accompany some people who did claim to manage that and had managed that flag or that pole for a long time because they wanted me there as they on flag day to lift something up there. But if my memory is better, I'd tell you who it was.
There was members of the Butte County Historical Society that had managed it. Mr. Lenhoff was one of the ones who managed it, and he's the one who puts on the ceremony, the flag ceremony there each Flag Day.
Thank you.
So I will actually, sparks me to contact him and get some more information from him as well.
Oh, and I have a question on the Table Mountain project, my wall.
Yes.
My wall. There's those barriers that are there. Are they still needed there? Like what's going on with that?
They are still needed there because there is some shoulder work that the contractor is doing. And not to get too deep into it, but the elevation of what was poured for the sidewalk was not quite level with what the pavement was. So there's a little bit of work to be done there. Again, that was too deep in the weeds. And then soon after.
I'm sorry. Can you pause? Are you saying that the sidewalk is going to be level with the road?
No. The gutter pan.
I see.
At the toe of the curb. So that wasn't quite level. And so they did a little work there. And so the barriers are going to remain there until they pull them and then they restripe that section of the roadway. However, our engineer and I have been really evaluating that location. And one of the ideas that we had, and I'm probably going to get ahead of myself on this as well, was to put back a decorative concrete barrier. There's some really nice ones that they use for crowd control. They're very heavy, 5,000 pounds a piece, so they would prevent a vehicle from entering that pedestrian way. But to not have it up to the curb where the pedestrian sidewalk is, to hold it off about 6 feet so that we have a bike lane that is also buffered by a barrier. So we would keep the two-way traffic, but have a bike lane that's buffered by the barrier and then the 10-foot pedestrian sidewalk. So it would be a true buffering of that area. It would still be low enough that you can see the mosaics within the art wall, but have a nice buffer. So that's just one idea. Our engineer is working on it, and he's going to bring that to as a presentation for the council.
And just just while you guys are working on it, I am not in favor of a permanent concrete barrier between.
Before you poo-poo it, let me show you the design.
I'm picturing the highway, the same those concrete.
Yes, no, nothing. It doesn't look like that at all.
K-rail.
No, it's not like that.
Okay. If you could show it to me, because that's my wall.
We will. That's why I said I'm getting ahead of myself.
In fact, I think they're putting a mosaic of my face on part of it. It's pretty cool. Joking.
But that will also come with a larger project. It's a capital improvement project to extend bike lanes all the way out to Garden Drive and across to the Forbay Aquatic Center.
Great.
So it'll be in combination with that.
I like bike lanes.
I do too, and I've heard.
Councilwoman Riggs?
Thank you. I've heard from my friends at Chico that Oroville is such a great place to bike, and they're all talking about it. We're a biking community. I didn't know. So.
They love the old highway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do have an adopted bicycle transportation plan, and that is something that we're trying to implement more of that in the community.
Yeah, on a personal note, I do appreciate that. As you know, I do e-bike in, as long as the weather is cooperative.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, so, and I do come down that hill. So I'm looking forward to all the beautiful mosaics. I will be, I will enjoy that. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Okay, so we have nothing left? Very good. So we do have some correspondence entered into the record. With no further ado, I'd like to adjourn this meeting to the regular meeting of the Oroville City Council will be held April 4th at 2023 at 4 p.m. Adjourned.
Great.
You did very good.